Hey, Dark Humility here. You can always catch me at www.twitch.tv/Dark Humility with Diablo 2 content, usually 6 to 7 days a week. Today, guys, we have my favorite build in vanilla Diablo 2, LOD Diablo 2, the Lightning Sorceress. That is a comprehensive guide for the Lightning Sorceress, including the standard setups, the player's 1 setup, Crescent Moon, 200% FCR, and a hardcore setup as well for a hardcore Lightning Sorceress, which will be played on an actual hardcore character. All of these characters are on my softcore and hardcore Grail projects on my single player pluggy, and all the items are solo self-found, so you can definitely do better than the items we'll show you guys today. We'll be going through the stats, the skills, and the gear, and demoing each of these setups and some of their strongest areas and uses of these setups, and we'll hopefully also cover all of the areas that she is strong in general. So, Lightning Sorceress is a beast. Like other insane builds, this is definitely one of those late game fantasy Diablo 2 builds. The Lightning Sorceress in general just destroys. Lightning immunes can be broken by infinity. She can. Most lightning immunes can be broken by infinity, which means she can clear pretty much all content, do all content in various ways. She can be retooled for players anywhere from one player in the game, players 1, all the way through players 7, depending on the amount of skill GCs you decide to put on her. And a lot of things. She's very versatile. She's probably one of the most versatile builds in the game. It's even arguable she might be the most versatile build in the game in terms of how many tasks she's just really strong at in general. Hopefully we'll be able to kind of go over a lot of that stuff today. Without further ado, though, we will start with the standard Lightning Sorceress. Standard Lightning Sorceress setup is the most versatile, most balanced. You could also say, like, she's kind of the jack of all trades. And, she's got a little bit of everything going on in her build, which allows her to kind of do a little bit of everything. It's my favorite Sorceress build on softcore as well. I feel like it kind of gives her everything you could possibly want. All the quality of life in every way, shape, and form. Alright. So, here we have her stats. So, just want to get enough strength to wear your spirit. You're always going to be using a spirit on a Lightning Sorceress, so just put enough strength in to wear the spirit. No points into dexterity on your standard softcore Lightning Sorceress. And you just dump the rest of the points into vitality. That's it. No points into energy, except for those that might be granted by your gear. And yeah, it's very simple stats-wise. You might notice that, we have a very high-level character here. But luckily the Lightning Sword kind of peaks in power, I think, at level 94. So that's not too big of an issue. But, that's still a very hard level to acquire for sure. Lightning damage. She does a ton of lightning damage. 42,000 damage. The standard build is designed to do a ton of damage while also having decent survivability and decent MF. All at the same time, so this has a lot of damage on this build. It's definitely a build that is ready for P7 in general, which means on this build we're probably going to be showing that P7, but we'll also maybe alternate player accounts to show you guys how strong she is in different scenarios. No block chance, so this is a softcore build. I don't usually focus on block chance unless it's hardcore, and for the most part, no one does unless it's a paladin. Paladin has Holy Shield, which makes it really easy to hit max block, so. But besides that, a softcore lightning build is going to hit, like, no points into dex. Don't have to worry about your block. With frozen armor, though, our defense is actually pretty decent. And we're hitting almost 2,600 life. With even better skillers and whatnot, we can hit even higher than that. So, pretty nice stuff in general. And maxed all res. You don't need to stack it. We're not in hardcore necessarily. Mine's a little bit stacked though because I have really good gear, but for the most part, just make sure your res is maxed if you want to have a good time. And my MF is almost at 300%. Pretty good stuff. I'd say anywhere north of like 250 means you have a really strong magic finding character in general. And of course you can take out some skillers, put more MF charms in, and you can get more MF. It's not a big deal. And what's up, Jailer? How you doing? Yeah, this is an LOD Lightning Sorceress guide, comprehensive guide you just walked into. So sit back, relax, and learn everything there is about the Lightning Sorceress today. Be back to PD2 tomorrow. All right, 120 faster cast rate. So, Lightning Sorceress has a special FCR breakpoint. All the other Sorceress abilities use the 105 faster cast rate breakpoint, like Teleport, but Lightning and Chain Lightning use 117. So you want to make sure we're hitting at least 117 on a Lightning Sorc, no matter what you do. It's amazing quality of life. You fire way faster at 117. It's a pretty big deal. Definitely a pretty big deal. One thing to note is that the frame below that is 78. If I drop my griffins on the ground, see, that's my speed there. Honestly, it almost feels like it's double the speed. It's not quite double the speed, but yeah, it's a pretty huge difference for sure. Just losing that one frame. And so yeah, we're going to be targeting the 117 frame with this Sorceress. We're also targeting the 86 faster hit recovery frame. Because we don't have max block, faster hit recovery is very important. When we take a lot of damage, more than 1/12 of our health and damage, we're not going to want to take forever to recover. And we're going to want to bounce right back. And one thing to note about faster hit recovery is you don't have to hit 86. It's actually kind of tough to. You might need a lot of charms to actually accomplish that, or very specific boots and whatnot. So what I'd recommend is if you can't hit 86, to try to hit 60. 60 is definitely a really solid target, and at the very least try to hit 42. But I think with Spirit plus one small charm, that's all it takes to hit the 60 breakpoint, so that's not too bad. And the rest of these stats are kind of just fluff. You don't have a lot of DR, which is okay because we're playing softcore. And those are resistances, which are pretty nice in general. Alright. Next thing to go over is the standard Lightning Sorceress's skill setup. So, under her skills, 1 point into Warmth, 1 point into Frozen Armor. These are 1 point wonders, but once you're at really high level, you can start dumping more points into either one. I recommend Warmth because it does help with your mana regen a little bit, and it definitely improves your quality of life. See, we have like 1,000 mana on this version of the build, so the more mana you have, the more mana regeneration is effective, and this tends to be nice in general, so you're not constantly chugging pots when you're using lightning. Yeah, Surgeons, check that out, man. The game was mean to me again yesterday. It was mean. Ooh. Ghost Lamosa, do you want to sell that to me? No, just kidding. Alright, Frozen Armor. Frozen Armor. Okay, so Frozen Armor is just a 1 point wonder, basically. You just put it on, and then when monsters attack you with melee attacks, they freeze. Which means that they attack you a lot slower. They freeze for a second, and then they'll proceed to attack again. Actually, more than a second. Which gives you a lot of time to attack them after landing into piles of enemies. Allows you to destroy them very easily. So, those are your two skills outside the Lightning Tree. The Lightning Tree is where all the magic happens on a Lightning Sorceress. What a surprise. We have, of course, max Lightning Mastery, max Chain Lightning, max Charge Volt, and max Nova. These are all the Lightning and Chain Lightning synergies. Correct, Duffy, yes. These are all the synergies here for Lightning and Chain Lightning. You can also use Charged Bolt against bosses if you want more consistent damage against them. We'll kind of show how that works. Static Field is also 1 point wonder, especially when you have all these lightning skills. Just have a huge amount of range on it and can just weaken enemies down to 50% life in hell and destroy them from there. It's very useful against bosses and very high HP enemies, maybe in player 7 as well, including Bale Waves. You can also put 1 point into Thunderstorm. This is kind of optional. I'll kind of talk about this in other builds too. It kind of just provides you with another source of single target damage here and there. There's even one situation when you don't want to use this. Hopefully I'll remember to explain it, but yeah. That's pretty cool stuff in general, so I usually just want to put 1 point in here. I wouldn't bother with this though until you're like level 95 though, to be honest. I'd rather just get your synergies all squared away and then you'll be in a lot better shape. We don't have to put a point into Teleport because it's granted by an item, but on the other Sorceress builds we'll put a point into that. And Telekinesis is just so useful in every Sorceress. Kind of like Frozen Armor, Warmth, Telekinesis, and Teleport. They're pretty much the staples of every Sorceress. Same thing with Static Field. You always put a point into each of these skills on every Sorceress. You'll see that on the rest of my versions of my Lightning Sorc build as well. That's just how it works. Alright, and last but not least, before we start demoing this character in some of her best areas, demo the standard character and some of her stronger areas, we'll check out the gear. Right. It is. Did you, that actually looks very tasty. I think I want to make one of those myself, actually. I might try to do that. Alright, so this is a Infinity. Yeah, sorry YouTube. Talking to Twitch chat, they're talking about some cool stuff going down. Infinity. Alright, so this is pretty much like staple in every lightning build in LOD and even on most elemental builds in general. If not all of them to some extent. Not all of them, but you know, there's definitely some variations that don't use it, but for lightning builds, like you break most lightning immunes with the Conviction Aura on Infinity. It's negative 85 to lightning res, which is just huge. And that's if you're not breaking the immunity. If you're breaking the immunity, it's not nearly as effective in terms of reducing their overall resistance. But if it gets it below 100, you can at least kill them, and the rest of your negative lightning res can take over, such as under Griffins. One thing to note is that negative enemy lightning res stat does not affect your damage. That only applies to the mercenary. So if you roll an Infinity and it rolls negative 45, don't despair. That would only matter if I somehow was wearing this Infinity on my person. I am not wearing it on my Sorceress though. I'm wearing it on the mercenary, so that stat doesn't matter. It's the Conviction Aura that matters, and it's always level 12. It's always negative 85, and it's huge when you can drop monsters down to negative 100 in LOD, so it's a really important thing. It's gonna greatly increase their damage. One thing to note, I should note before maybe I go even further into the gear, is that the Lightning Sorceress is not an early game Sorceress build. There are other builds, and there's other builds and configurations out there that are great for starting out in the game with no gear. I personally do not recommend playing a Lightning Sorceress with the no gear. Even a Fire Sorceress, in many cases, will outperform a Lightning Sorc with no gear. You really need a lot of negative enemy res to make up for the fact that it has such a low minimum damage to really make it super ultra powerful. And you need a lot of plus skills as well. It just doesn't scale as well early game. Abilities like Blizzard and Fireball are way better at that. So, without further ado, let's continue to go through the gears. So we talked about Infinity. In any standard Infinity configuration on a Mercenary, you're also going to want Daryl's Visage, hopefully with attack speed jewel, so you can get to another attack speed frame. You don't need Infinity in a Giant Thresher, by the way, but it is the fastest base along with Thresher. So a very fast base is going to get the Mercenary attacking faster, which means more procs of Crushing Blow. It means more life leech for the Mercenary. It just means more damage and DPS in general. So attack speed fire res jewel is really good in an Andes because Andes has negative fire res. So to maintain the Mercenary's fire res, having that extra fire res is important. And then we also have an E-Bug Fortitude, which is almost perfect actually. What a crazy... I actually found this pretty recently on my LOD Grail, all things considered. I had another one of these, but it had 50 less defense. This one has perfect life per level. It has 27 all res, and it has only 24 defense off 100% perfect, so it's pretty insane. But all you really need is some kind of tutorial bugged fortitude with a strong amount of defense, and this build really comes together in the late game. Pretty cool stuff in general. Alright, let's go over kind of... Oh yeah, you know, before we go over my gear, I should also mention about the mercenary. So we're going to be using a Might Aura mercenary. Might Aura will allow the mercenary to do a maximum amount of damage, so that if a monster happens to be lightning immune, I can kill said monster very quickly just by tele-stomping it with the mercenary and having the mercenary kill the monster. That being said, on softcore, another very strong option would be Holy Freeze. I do all my variations, I'm going to be using Might, but Holy Freeze is also solid, especially if you want a little bit more time to train down the enemies and you don't feel comfortable with your current survivability. Slowing down those enemies definitely helps out quite a bit. But we'll be using, I'd say, what I'd consider to be the standard efficient configuration, which is a Act 2 Nightmare Offensive mercenary. Alright. And then for the gear, so we have a Heart of the Oak. So there's definitely a couple things you can put in here. You can use a Shoota's, so a Shoota's Temper, which gives you slightly more lightning damage by having % lightning damage on it. I like Hodo because it gives you maximum life. It also gives you regen. It gives you the same amount of faster cast rate and skills as the Shoota's, but it also gives you up to 40 all res, which is really nice just for rounding out your build. You don't have to worry about resistances as much, and because of the armor that I chose to wear, which is so good for the rest of her build, it really makes a lot of sense to wear Hodo on the standard configuration of Lightning Sorceress. I consider it to be best in slot in general. What's up, Side Up? How you doing? Indeed, indeed. Alright, so I think before we check this one out, let's check out this one here. So this is a 100% perfect lightning damage Griffins I found on my Grail. It's definitely one of my sickest finds on the Grail, period. And you don't need something quite this good, if not even this good, but a Griffins is always going to be best in slot on a Lightning Sorceress, or just any Lightning character in general on LOD, except for a Lightning Trapper. And that's because the negative enemy light res does not apply to traps. Kind of like the negative enemy light res on the mercenary does not apply to you. This would not apply to traps because traps are considered a minion. But we're not talking about the trapper, we're talking about the lightning sorceress. So this is best in slot. We have a perfect lightning facet in it as well. So it's just maximum DPS. It gives you that faster cast rate as well, and a skill. The faster cast rate is very important. We're hitting that 117 breakpoint. We're exceeding it by at least a little bit. Anyway, we have a Mars. Mars, once again, 2 skills, 5 attributes, 30 all res. It really rounds out that res and that damage very well. Crafted Ammies are also a very good choice here, though. Like, let's say you had a 2 sorceress, 17 faster cast rate amulet. You combine that with the rest of your faster cast rate, you can even maybe hit 117 exactly or just barely graze it. And you can maybe take off some other FCR gear. And you can still hit your breakpoint while also having other stats that you might want on a crafted Ammies, such as still a lot of all res, maybe strength, dex, and maybe a lot of magic finder. Or just a lot of life in general. So, Mars is a very solid option, though. It's very safe option as well, so that's why we're showing it here. Enigma. So, I can already tell what you guys are thinking with this one. What the heck? Dark Humility just told me to use Enigma on a Sorceress. Hold up. There must be something. He must have a screw loose. Wait, how is it that this is the best armor? On a sorcerer. Yeah, he's a crazy man. Exactly, side up. Exactly. What's up, Jewel? How you doing? What's up, Shigens? So, you really want me to force organize it? I can't, man. Someone, refund them. I'm doing something. Okay, anyway. Alright, I'm not actually crazy. So this is, believe it or not, it's not about the teleport. Right? The teleport is cool because then I don't have to put an extra point in the teleport. But that's not why we have this on a sorceress. Obviously, I can just put an extra skill in here and I'll have teleport. That's not an issue. Matter of fact, whether I put a skill here or not, the mana cost will be 1 because I have so many lightning skills, plus skill gear and whatnot. It's not really an issue. The issue here is that Enigma gives you everything you could possibly want on a lightning sorceress. It gives you 2 skills, fast run walk for running around in town, for quick telekinesis. It gives you a ton of defense, which synergizes pretty well with 1 point frozen armor. It gives you almost 80 strength for wearing Spirit. Spirit is very strength intensive. What that means is with the amount of life vitality points we're saving trying to get Spirit, plus the battle orders from our Call to Arms, which I'm about to show in a second, we are going to hit like an extra like 250 to 300 life. That's no small amount. Especially also considering the Jaw Rune giving us increased maximum life 5% on top of that. The Enigma is actually giving us about 350, 400 extra life overall. That's a lot. She's a very squishy character. I mean, sorceresses are not known for being insanely tanky in general. Now, of course, you can play a sorceress in hardcore, which we'll go over at some point in this guide, but it's just really crazy how much extra life you get from this, having this armor. There's nothing that compares. There's other things you can use in this slot, which we'll talk about in a second, but nothing really compares there. You get 8% damage reduction from the Burr Runes, so it's the only damage reduction you have on the build. You get 14 life after each kill. Now that is huge. That stat is huge. It's such an underrated stat. Like, on a lightning sorceress, you're constantly plowing through lots of enemies, and you will take damage. Mark my words. When you see me play her, we're going to take damage all the time. But when we kill the monsters with the lightning, we will quickly refill our health bar and will really prevent chugging potions all the time by just having Enigma on. It's so huge. And the damage taken going to mana is also very nice for quality of life as well. Means our mana will be nice and plump, and we will have 96% Magi Find. So let's talk about other options in this slot. So we have Scolders. Scolders would give you about 50 more MF, Scolders Ire. But it would leave you with 1 less skill, and it gives you none of the rest of this stuff, pretty much. I mean, it may give you some defense as well, but pretty much nothing else. There's some other stuff about Scolders too, like MDR, but it's not huge. You lose all the DR, you lose the huge amount of defense unless it's an ethereal Scolders. You lose the extra skill, you lose almost like 400 extra life, you lose like all kinds of stuff. It's really pretty breathtaking just how strong Enigma is. Just as an armor for every build, but even for a lightning sorceress, it's just crazy. I really like it on this build, and it really makes it all come together, and it really makes her play very well. So I highly recommend it. Chains of Honor also gives you 2 skills, which is nice. And if you need res, Chains of Honor is a good choice, but it won't give you like, you know, all kinds of these stats. It won't give you the crazy amount of strength. It gives you some strength. It won't give you the increased maximum life. And only give you a very small portion of that magic find, and it won't give you the life per kill, which is just so good for quality of life. So if you can find the res elsewhere, I'd highly recommend it. Viper Magi is good, but we pretty comfortably get our faster cast rate on this build, so I don't really feel like it's necessary. We will be showing Viper Magi on another variation of this build, but we don't need it on the standard variant. We'll talk about it when we're doing some more interesting stuff with one of our variants coming up here, but it's not needed. I think that pretty much goes over the armor, though, for the most part. I mean, I pretty much went over most of the major options, so at least we have maybe a better understanding of why I'm using Enigma on a Sorceress. Anyway, we have Spirit Monarchs. The Spirit Monarch is it's the best on most LOD builds. This shield is so crazy. It's a best in slot shield that requires Talfool or Am, which is nuts. And it gives you 2 skills, 35 faster cast rate. It just gives you all the stats you could possibly want on this character. Res, mana, life. Almost all the FHR we need to hit that 86 breakpoint, and pretty much all the FHR to hit the 60 breakpoint if you're going for the 60 breakpoint. So that's pretty huge. Call to Arms doesn't need to be 6 bow, of course, but I rolled a really insane one. I've rolled a couple insane ones on this, so this is an F War Axe. Did you know a CTA could be put in something other than a flail and a crystal sword? Yes, it can. Be put in any 5-socketed weapon, and yeah, show off to your friends how cool your CTA is by putting in a War Axe. Then of course we have an Eth Spirit Monarch. Why? Just for looks. Just matching. They don't have to be Eth at all. It's just for looks. You don't lose durability on them when they're on your offhand because you're not attacking on your offhand. At least you shouldn't be. So you can just have them on your offhand. It's fun. And that's just adding extra skills to battle orders, having a spirit on swap, and making us be able to bow a bit faster with spirit. Alright, and then the rest of the gear is pretty much focused on balancing out a bit more Magic Find, and then Stone of Jordans are just really nice, just mana, skill, just more damage. There's only 2 skill rings in LOD, so Stone of Jordans is really nice. This character burns through mana, so you could also put like a BK ring as one of them if you want. And of course, if you want to swap out other pieces of gear, you can maybe put on a faster cast rate here. You could put an Oculus on here instead. Maybe give yourself a more Magic Find. The only thing about Oculus, though, is that Oculus, of course, would teleport you around. So in some of her strongest areas, it gets really annoying because of like burning souls and whatnot. So I don't like that. It's another reason why we're not using like Oculus, for instance. Chudas is solid, but it doesn't give you all this res, so it only gives you like you only really get like 1.5k more damage by putting on a perfect Ashudas. That's how hard it is to prove this. Of course, if you want more negative enemy light res by putting a perfect facet in your Ashudas, that can definitely make you even a little bit stronger, and we can get even higher than 44k maximum damage. Now, one thing I should note is that this character is kind of nutty. So, you know, I would consider this is my favorite endgame Diablo 2 build, and it's also one of the most insane endgame Diablo 2 builds, period. But as you can see, the minimum damage is almost nothing, and the maximum damages are huge. So it's a lot of RNG on these abilities, which means sometimes you're gonna have to use 1 lightning to kill a monster, and sometimes you might need to use 4. It's just the way it is. But let's just finish up the build real quick. So we have a Sorceress Torch, Annie, pretty nice rolls, especially this one. And I actually have a pretty solid set of lightning skillers here. These are all self-found, but of course you can have 45 lifers here if you're really rich or you happen to find one. Definitely make these light skillers even better. In general, the standard version of the Lightning Sorceress, though, definitely focuses on a combination of Magic Find, survivability, and damage, and of course, cast speed and everything else, and enemy negative light res. So you get a little bit of everything, and that means we get pretty high damage with these lifers and these FHR GCs. Now, these FHR GCs are essential if we want to hit that 86 breakpoint. Yeah, I actually did find 2 of these on my single player. I've played way too much. Don't ask, we've actually found 2 of them. Got very lucky too. And with those plus these 2, we're hitting that 86. And in general, that's kind of what I recommend if you want to hit 86. You just get 2 of these suckers, or you get 3 FHR light skillers, and then you just get like life or res down here. But for the most part, you just want life and MF res like normal. It's pretty much what you would do in the end game on almost any build. You're filling out your charms. And then, of course, you put a Geeds there as well. You can take the Geeds off, and you can even add more damage if you want. But, you know, we're trying to hit near like 300 MF. She's a very well-balanced build. which is the whole idea behind a standard build in general. If I ever make a guide, standard build is just very balanced. Jack of all trades, does the most things very well. Doesn't do, I would say, any one thing like necessarily the best, but just does everything insanely well, just overall. I forgot to show the build. Oh, I did forget to show the build. Oh, man. You're right. Well, thank you, 314. Arachnid's Mesh. Yeah, so Arachnid's Mesh is pretty staple on most builds in Diablo 2 in the endgame. It's just a crazy build. Skill, 20 FCR, and mana. It's everything we want on this character. It's allowing us to reach that 120 FCR breakpoint. It's filling out our FCR very well with our damage. Notice that all three of these items have skills. You can't get a skill for a lightning character on gloves. So it's very perfectly balanced just along all the skills and damage and survivability. The Enigma is helping us a lot with that. And we just have a lot of nice res stuff. Well, GG. Thank you, man. Actually, that helped me out because that would have kind of sucked to not at least show the build. Alright. I'm sure I've done that before, though, in one of my guides. Someone just hasn't pointed it out yet. Alright, so let's go. And someone redeemed Force Inventory Organization, so we'll give them a bit of freegasm here. Just put all the charms in order of looks. Needs more lease. Sure, okay. Alright, let's do the demo. Alright, so
I can already tell that I'll be your best friend in this fuss.
for a standard lightning sorceress, we're kind of just going to show off all of her areas that she's really strong with. We might re-show some of these areas and some of the other variations of this build. But in general, we're just going to show off kind of like her generic strongest areas. So we're in player 7, so right now we're testing P7 so you can see the full extent of her damage. And she destroys. So for the most part, you're going to be teleporting around, getting close enough with your Infinity Mercenary, and zapping him with lightning. You can also use Chain Lightning on your right click to mow down hordes of enemies, just mow down density in general. If you so choose. That's a really good strategy in player 7 because almost all the monsters are dropping items in player 7. Yeah. One thing to note is when I started the run, I cast Frozen Armor. Always want to do that. Cast Bow and Battle Command and Battle Command, Battle Orders, and Battle Command. And then, one thing I forgot to do, actually, was cast Thunderstorm. So now I have T-Storm, I'm just doing maximum damage all the way around. As you see, T-Storm will just randomly hit a random enemy somewhere. As long as it's nearby your character, gonna hit something. Lightning Sorceress really excels at sniping elites. That was kind of dangerous. Sniping elites. So just going around, teleporting around, sniping the elites from these elite packs. These champion packs are no exception. And they have the highest chance to drop some of that really good gear. So she's just really good at that in general. But as you can see, that's the pit. The only lightning immune are these archers, and it can be broken by infinity. So she just destroys. Hands down, the pit gets shredded once you have infinity and griffins. Easy mode. One thing I should also show is that the lightning sorceress is one of the, if not the most effective and efficient key farmer in the game. When I say key, I mean Uber keys. So for Uber Tristram, and for the opening up the portals to get the organs for Uber Tristram. That's what the keys do. One destruction, one terror, and one H key opens up one of the portals to either Uber Indariel or Lilith. Izual, Uber Izual, and Uber Duriel. You'll get one of each organ, and then you'll be able to open up Uber Tristram, and fight Uber, Mephisto, Diablo, and Baal for a Hellfire Torch, which is this item right here. Now, in general, in the tower, when you're farming the tower, so this is one of the keys. This is the terror key. So she does have higher chances to drop her terror key, or even multiple terror keys, the higher the player count is. So player count does affect key drops. Because she teleports so fast at 105 FCR, or even at 200 FCR, which is maybe even better for key farming specifically, but we'll show that a bit later. She's just really fast at moving through and finding the tower in general. The tower will always be on the edge of the Black Marsh map, somewhere near like a house or near the edge of the map, or near the edge in the middle. So it's near the walls somewhere. Once you get into the tower, straight ahead, this block here is pointing this way. You go west of it, and you always go west, or you find a west-facing block. So this block's pointing that way, so I'm going to go over here, and sure enough, it's a block that is facing left or west from that block. It's facing to the left, so it's down here and to the left. That's how I know where to find it instantly. Bam, good to go. And as you can see, when your Lightning Sorceress has tons of damage, she stands no chance against you. Key farming can be a little challenging for other element sorceresses, because especially Countess, because Countess is always cold immune. Her minions are always cold immune, and she herself always is. And she's I think she's both fire and cold immune, and her minions are cold immune. So it's pretty tough. Like, lightning is pretty nice for it because there are no lightning immunes except for the archers, and you can break them with infinity. So farming the Countess, who has the terror key, is pretty easy. She didn't drop one that time, but that's pretty much what you want to do. Just pop into the Black Marsh, find the tower on the outside of the wall, and you're good to go. One thing I should mention about the pit here is the pit is always along the path somewhere, and there's certain rules to how the path winds if you want to learn how to most effectively actually find the pit, but I don't think that's too appropriate for a Lightning Sorceress guide. We'll just go over her areas in general. There's some pretty detailed stuff going on there. All right, so spot on the immunities. Awesome. Yeah, that's what I thought. I wasn't sure, but Nerf's here. We have an expert in the chat in general, so I guess I could call myself an expert in some ways, but sometimes there's things I forget here and there. Yeah, you have to leave the you have to have the mercenary kill her on cold and fire builds because she's immune to both cold and fire, so it's really nasty. All right, so at least the Countess. That's what we're talking about. All right. As a sorceress, she's pretty good at boss killing. I would say though that once you get to the point to where you can even make a Lightning Sorceress, once you even get this kind of gear to where a Lightning Sorceress becomes effective, you're probably not going to be actually farming them. That being said, you can do anything with this character, and that's maybe something I can illustrate here. Like, this character can do it all. Like, this build has such fast teleport, and with infinity you can break almost any resistance. With bosses we can use static field and then a couple uses of lightning and boss down. Once again, this is player 7, so you can only imagine just how fast you'd kill a monster in single player. This build just does ridiculous damage, at least on the high end. Obviously the RNG can be bad and you can get kind of kneecapped by that, but just the way it is. Now, in Act 2, on a standard Lightning Sorceress, I don't really recommend any of these other farms in Act 2. There's definitely some 85 areas. See, the pit is one of those well-rounded areas. It's an 85 area. It drops all and every items. It drops all types of items at a pretty good rate, and it drops every item in the game. Bosses, of course, specialize in certain kinds of like basic gear, like things like War Traps and Chance Guards, gear of that nature. Mars from Mephisto and back from Mephisto. This you can't even find from a boss unless it's Baal, but you get the idea. Basic kind of basic general gear, you know, gold wrap, shakos, things like that. And of course, we killed Countess. They specialize in dropping those Uber keys, but they also have decent item loot tables. Countess also drops up to Istrin. But when we're talking about Act 2, Act 2 doesn't really have a lot of good farms on a standard Lightning Sorceress. We will demo it when I do a different variant of this character, but in general, your top farm is Arcane. This is my favorite farm in the game on my favorite build in the game. I just gotta say that. I just gotta get out of my system. This is my favorite area in the game. This is an amazing farm for this character. Killing the ghosts, the specters, lining them up is so easy with fast teleport. Teleporting between the ghosts or the specter packs, zapping them with lightning in a perfect line. This area is very linear, so lightning is like perfect for it. Using telekinesis to pop open the super chests. It's all very smooth and it honestly looks very elegant. Once you get to the point to where you at least have infinity, this is going to be very strong. You don't even really need griffins, and heck, you don't even need infinity to farm this. This is one of the few areas in the game that without infinity, you can actually farm pretty effectively on a Lightning Sorceress. So if you wanted to play a Lightning Sorceress early, just because, this is actually something you can do. It's not going to be as strong without infinity, for sure. It's not going to be as strong with a lot of plus skills at the very least. But it's definitely possible. There's no lightning immunes in Arcane. And for runes, charms, gems, jewels, and jewelry, and some other items like socket bases when you accidentally kill the Hell Clans can all drop in here. You can get runes up to Cham, and Spectres have amazing loot tables for those kinds of items because they can't drop like armor type items or weapons like flails. They can't drop those, so because of that, the rest of their loot table is constricted, which means that gems and runes and whatnot drop way more often. Of course, what drops even more often than those are scrolls and potions, but it's still a lot easier. So when you're trying to farm this area, the idea is to kill the specters, high density preferred, gather the ghosts, don't kill them on the over the edge because those will not be able to get loot from anything that dies off the platform. On D2R, I'm not sure exactly how that's going to work, but I assume it's going to work the same way as it does in LOD because they haven't changed any of the core mechanics, so it's still going to be the same. Another thing to mention about Arcane is it also has the Summoner, and given that she's arguably the best Uber key farmer overall in the game in terms of Countess, Summoner, and Illithawk, she will also farm Summoner very well as well. With 200 FCR, even better, which we'll talk about when we get to that, but yeah. Overall, just really good stuff, and let's demo it. Let's show what's going down. So we are in P7, and in this area, player 7 is always ideal because the ghosts don't have a lot of HP, and they definitely drop way more items when you are in higher player count. So the higher player count, the better in here, no matter what. In other areas, you can just target elites, which always drop an item, even in players 1. Quality is not affected by player count whatsoever. But in this case, we're killing random ghosts, and we're popping super chests, which makes player 7 really good. And there's the Summoner, and he got vaporized. The ghosts get vaporized too. That's another benefit to this farm, by the way, is that you can just get keys at pay along with all the other awesome items you can get in here. Hey, what's up, Great Grievance? How you doing? You drop 2 low runes, LO runes, in Arcane 20 minutes apart. I found a low rune and an ohm rune in one run once. And I'm actually pretty well known for this farm. I made a very crazy arcane power farm datasheet, which I actually might link in this guide here in the description. If you guys want to check out a 5,000 run arcane sanctuary run sheet. How I'm running it right now is pretty much what you want to do. Just want to seek out the ghost packs. Make sure you can get them off the platform. can skip them if they're really annoying to gather because they're like really far off the platform if you want. And for the most part, just use lightning. Yeah, try not to kill as many as you can off the edge. If you do, it's not the end of the world though. It just means they never would have dropped anything anyway. I guess in some other timeline, maybe a jaw rune wouldn't have dropped off the edge, but I assure you it's just a meme! But yeah. So, my hands never forget how to do this because I've just done it so many times. In general though, you just want to gather the ghosts together. And kind of ignore the rest of the enemies. Their loot tables are okay, but they're just standard monster loot tables for the most part. The great thing about lightning in here is that you can kill the other monsters along with the ghosts. Yeah, as you can see, lots of gems, lots of scrolls, lots of potions, charms as well. The super chests also drop a lot of them. Sometimes the other monsters that are also pretty dense in here will drop you some charms. If you're looking for those jaw runes, definitely a really solid approach. Or chams for that matter. I'm going to do a full farm on this character because I consider her to be the best build at it. There are other builds that are pretty strong at this area as well, especially with different variants, but in general in Arcane, just want to make sure you're not using Oculus, so you're not teleporting around like crazy. Make sure you're actually not using Thunderstorm. Thunderstorm can sometimes put the ghosts in FHR lock and will make it difficult to get them from staying off the edge. The Thunderstorm will sometimes zap them when they're off the edge and will keep them stuck, and that's going to slow you down. Don't use Oculus and just use something like Heart of the Oak or Shooters. Maximize your damage, get your res up so you're not constantly potting. And get your FCR to at least 117. And if you're feeling zappy, you can hit a 200 FCR as well. So we've got another Amethyst as well. Yeah, there's just so many gems. It's crazy. But yeah. If you're feeling frisky, you can always hit 200 FCR. 200 FCR, though, does mean lower damage sometimes, so you might think it'd be way faster, but not necessarily. I think I even prefer the standard version of this build in here, but try them for yourself. Figure out which one you like better. We will be going over the 200 FCR build today, though, so we'll at least show you guys why you might want to use that. And see, right there, you'll notice that one of the ghosts there dropped an F rune. So yeah, they just drop tons of runes. And every once in a while, it's going to be a big one. It's going to be a whopper. And compared to a lot of farms in the game, this area is just much more effective at farming runes and whatnot, so long as you can get that player count up pretty high. Alright, so other major areas to talk about. So we are a Sorceress, which means lower cross is definitely doable. Out of all the Sorceresses, though, I wouldn't do it with a lightning one because most of the enemies in here are lightning immune. So if you ever get surrounded by them, it can be a problem. Since this is a late game character, though, you may as well farm it if you want. If you know where the super chests are, like in single player, and you get 2 sets of campfires next to the waypoint, you can even just pop the super chest and go back to the waypoint, go to Act 4, and just reload the game, and you can pop these chests right here. This is one of the campfires. Campfires always have 2 super chests here and 1 super chest up here. And you're good to go. And with telekinesis, you can just pop clickables with telekinesis. You can go back to the waypoint with telekinesis. Telekinesis is your best friend, so make sure to keep it keybound somehow. Most of the time, we're just going to be using teleport on right click, though. Chain lightning on left click. You can even also put your lightning on left click, but I like having lightning here so I can use shift left click, and then I can go back to teleporting on right click with very smooth transitions like this. But in general, that's how it is. Alright, since I'm not doing Arcane anymore, I'll put back on my T-Storm, I'll put my bow back on. Alright, so yeah, you can just pop the clickables, pop the super chests, and lower across. Because we have a lot of FCR, but once again, that's another one of those cases where a 200 faster cast rate might be even better. Just simply because you're able to move around and telekinesis even faster. Alright, Mephisto. So, Act 3 in general is, just like Act 2, doesn't have too many areas you really want to mess around with on this build. At least not too much. But we gotta kill Mephisto. It's kind of obligatory. So, that's a very quick kill for player 7. Just very quick kill overall on player 7, just so much damage. And if you kill him above the stairs like that, most of the time you can even telekinesis that red portal, which is kind of neat. Alright, yeah. Also, another thing to note about Durance is that if you go to the left or find a west-facing tile, compared to the warp tile direction, which is facing that way, you just go to the left. Now, we got really lucky. This is a really nice map. That's not always going to happen, but sometimes it could be anywhere. It can be behind you, it can be all the way over there, and then have like a west-facing tile. But yeah, anyway. That can be pretty nasty. Once again, though, I don't know how much you're actually going to want to farm Mephisto once you get gear of this caliber. Normally, you're going for things like high runes. That's why I showed Arcane. I'd say Arcane's like one of her best farms, so is key farming in general. And so is farming elites in level 85 areas like the pit. But, on that note, you can also do one of her other strongest areas. Hey, what's up, man? I will just showed off the gear, so it will be on the guide, but unfortunately you can't see exactly what she's wearing right now in any of my commands. The Light Sorc command has a different setup, which we'll be going over today as well, but it's a different one. Actually, let's see what kind of junk we picked up while we've been demoing here. Oh no, nothing. Alright, so City of the Damned is a pretty awful farm for this character. It just has tons of lightning. I mean, some you can't even break with Infinity. I think the bats are an example of that, so yeah, no, that's kind of a no-go. Don't play around in that area with a Lightning Sorc. Otherwise, it's an 84 area, so that would be nice in other characters. River of Flame is okay. It does have a decent amount of lightning immunes. For the most part, though, I'd only mess around in River, though, on the way to Chaos itself. In general, it's pretty solid. So we're just going to seek out those elites, those champion monsters, just zap them with lightning. It's pretty easy stuff. Now, if I show off the standard build in Player 7, then show off one of the other builds we're going to show off in a bit, we'll be able to see the difference. I wouldn't say the standard version of this build is the best version for Chaos specifically, but, you know, like I said, she's the jack of all trades, so she can definitely do it. And, in general, Chaos isn't too big of an issue on her. He finds it to be fairly simple. Teleporting into corners is sometimes a nice idea to avoid damage. You teleport into corners or edges of the map. All the monsters can only hit you from the front, and then your mercenary can block. And then you can kill him. Now that dude there was lightning immune, so pretty tough kill. Mercenary, though, can always help us out, even if we can't break a lightning immune with Infinity. The mercenary does a lot of physical damage. Especially with all his attack speed and a very strong, fast Infinity weapon. So yeah, as you can see, we can snipe all these monsters. We have a ton of damage. Overall, she plays very well in all areas of the game, including Chaos, which is another one of those areas that can drop every item in the game, and is well-rounded in general for all types of items, including ultra rares, basic items, runes, charms, and all the other cool stuff. Stormcasters actually are just like specters, so they have really good loot tables for the runes and whatnot. Just got a burst seal popping. Hell yeah, let's go. Rat Spink Train, let's do it. So yeah, as you can see, even in Player 7, this build truly is a jack of all trades. And you can almost see the quality of life with Enigma. You can kind of see the quality of life with Enigma here too. I mean, you can kind of see my life really keeping me alive, my health keep all this extra life I have, a life per kill. Oh wow, that's a pretty rare find off Diablo. Yeah, just like with always on bosses, we use static field and then we train him down with lightning. Against Bale, hopefully I'll show the charge bolt technique. We'll do that one to show you how you can maybe employ some charge bolt. Hey, congrats, man, and thank you so much for the follow. GG. Corb, thank you for the redemption. I'm gonna have to refund you your points though. We actually cannot do that during a YouTube guide, but you can do that in any other case. Don't worry, it'll come back. We'll come back. You guys are funny. All right, Leviathan. That rolled pretty low, but it's a Leviathan. That's pretty cool. DR. Nice, pretty green armor. It's the pretty green one, unlike the ugly one that keeps rolling instead of the Tyrell's Might I want to find. I even found that yesterday when I was making the Javazon guide. What a joke. Alright, anyway. Alright, so that's pretty much it for Act 4 in terms of like her general strong areas. Do we have a mod in the chat that can refund that for him real quick? Alright, so once again, refresh your Thunderstorm, Frozen Armor, and Battle Command Bow when it is taken off. And this is pretty much the only other thing I'd farm, even before you had Infinity, besides Arcane Sanctuary. This is not bad. Like farming Eldritch and Shank, you know, they're cold immune, so it's honestly a pretty strong farm. You can see though in Player 7 when I have this level of gear though, they're pretty insane. Now one thing you might have noticed I just did there, which is something that could be very handy in high player count, is using a couple bursts of static field. Oh god. Alright, well, auras are dangerous. Water is wet. Alright, don't have max block, Dark Humility. You're not playing on your hardcore characters that have max block. You're not doing it. Alright, anyway. So yeah, static field's really nice. So in Player 7, monsters have a ton of HP. They do more damage. It's overall a really great test for a really strong build like this one. But static field can train down enemies down to 50% in hell. So when monsters have a lot of HP in general, you can kind of teleport around. And you can train down the enemies with static field. Another solid area, besides Eldritch and Shank, which drop a lot of nice basic items, is Drifter Cavern. It's kind of like City of the Damned is an 84 area, and you don't have any problems in here with lightning so long as you have Infinity. Drifter Cavern is always straight ahead from the warp tile, which is pointing this way. So that's the way to find it. Yeah, and it's just a really good area just overall for overall farming, just all around pretty good. It can only drop every item in the game though from elites though, so it's not as strong as an area like the pit in general. It can drop it from champion monsters as well. Elite monsters like Bilewing the Quick, for instance, and their minions are the only ones that can drop every item in the game, including Tyrell's Might, which is the rarest item in the game. And here, as you can see, we're good to go. So if I use static field here, you might notice that I can kill them even faster with lightning or chain lightning. If there's a lot of enemies, usually I'm going to use chain lightning. But if the enemies are a bit more close together, or if they're in a line, I just want to do a lot of damage and pop them right there. So yeah, this is Player 7. If she gets high lightning rolls, like, the damage is just absurd. You don't even need static field in a lot of cases, but it's not a bad strategy though. Especially if maybe you're not wearing as many skillers. Let's say you're going a bit higher on the magic find. You still want to play in player 7, or you just still want to play in a large group. Or let's say you're playing hardcore and you need to stack more like life res charms. Using static field is definitely going to be your best friend for getting more of that damage pumped in. Alright, so. You beat Diablo Sorc there, 1.7k HP. Yeah, I know. I know. Well, you know, battle order scales very well on LODs, so it's very nice. Percent life is it's a blessing. What can I say? All right, so this is the last key farm. This is Nilithok. Summoner drops the H keys. We had Countess with the D keys. Nilithok drops the D keys. With the Nilithok, we have 3 different map configurations. This one, the top left, means it's going to be to the top center. And Lightning Sorceress is really good at this because, for the most part, they'll never be immune to you. And you can, since lightning pierces through all the enemies it hits, as you've probably been observing this whole time. See, I can shoot straight to the center of Nilithok and just kill him. So what we're going to do is we're going to teleport, we're going to find the 2 paintings that are perpendicular to each other, like so. There's no painting here, but there's a painting here, there's a painting here, and there's a painting here. There's no painting here, there's a painting here, there's 2 paintings there. That means Nilithok is over here. And we can just shoot through all his minions and zap him. Sometimes he is lightning immune and it can be broken by infinity, and more rarely he is lightning immune and it can't be broken by infinity. Under those conditions, of course, you can use your mercenary to finish him off. Of course, if you're doing Nilithok and want to be a bit safer, you can sacrifice a skill and some mana, and you can use a Nature's Piece instead, so he can't use Corpse Explosion when you kill his minions. When your mercenary kills them, he can still use the Corpse Explosion, so make sure mercenary does not kill them as much as possible. Corpse Explosion is very dangerous in there. I made that look very easy. Sometimes there's those nasty poison snakes, and D2R, supposedly they've planned to fix the bug on those snakes though, so it shouldn't be as nasty as what we're doing right now on this LOD pluggy. But at least when you roll snakes down there, we didn't see snakes that time though, so we got lucky. In general, yeah, that's what you're supposed to do. And you can even break the snake's immunities as well, so you don't really have any resistance in there. With great positioning, maybe against the walls, you can get your mercenary to tank for you, and you can just zap Nilithok from afar, from the back. Makes a really easy time getting Nilithok key. You didn't get any keys there, but as you can see, the Lightning Sorceress is very fast and has no immunity problems when it comes to actually killing the key bosses, which makes her a very ideal choice, having fastest teleport frames in the game and being able to do so much damage and not have issues. Next up, I guess, is definitely one of my favorite areas to play her in, and definitely one of her strongest areas. Once again, there's actually only one monster type she really has immunity issues with, which is in Worldstone 3. But besides that, in here she teleports fast, quick zaps, quick destruction. It's easy. Worldstone can be pretty tough in player 7, which is what we're doing right now. Let's say maybe you're not doing as much damage as this, or maybe you don't have as many plus skills. That's okay. Because even if you're playing solo or otherwise, you can just zap everything in players 1, and even with really variable minimum to maximum damage lightning rolls, you will be killing the monsters in one shot most of the time with lightning. Where is... oh. Okay. So like, even if you want to farm Worldstone Keep 1, for instance, now we're in players 1, we can just pop the elites in the mouth. On a different build we're gonna do, not this one, this is a little bit better illustrated because it's built for that. It does less damage than I'm currently doing right now. It has much more magic find. But as you can see though, this character is very much built for this. can get a bit nastier when you get some lightning immunes, like right there. But the mercenary can take care of them if you telestomp directly on top of them. And make sure telekinesis the well. Good shit. Alright. Yes, only lower resist and conviction. And of course there's a mod where you can break it with static field as well, but that's a bit different. No, rainbow facets cannot break immunities, but if the monster is not immune, or if conviction, off it or infinity, or lower res is able to break the immunity, then the facets come into play and start lowering the resistance. That's the case with my griffins. So the griffins, for instance, with the facet, is lowering all the monsters' lightning res further down from infinity, and when they are broken by infinity, that extra negative light res is helping us do a lot of damage to monsters that still have a ton of lightning res even after I break their immunity. But it's really helping us a lot. That's a good question, actually, from the chat there. Did you get it, Pluto Time? Did you refund him? So right there. That's an example of a monster that cannot be broken with conviction from infinity. Mercenary kills it very fast. Luckily, even if there are a couple of monsters that can't be broken with infinity, as long as they're not stone skin, the mercenary can usually pop them very quickly. As long as you have fortitude and infinity on the mercenary. Yeah, in Players 1, it's pretty easy stuff. We're actually going to go back to Players 7 because we're going to simulate one of the best farms in the game. This character is insanely good at bail running because of the fast teleport frames and the fact that lightning can kill everything. And you just have a huge positioning advantage as well. It's all about positioning on this character. It's all about finding out where lightning can do the most amount of damage. Positioning in front, lining up the enemies, and shooting them. So now we're back in Players 7. I could show you guys the static field method again. So the monsters have a lot more health and damage again. And just shoot them with the lightning. But if I use static field a few times here, we're good to go. It's all about interweaving these abilities. So all these abilities weave together. The lightning, the chain lightning when they're not in a line or where they're all around you or where there's a ton of them. Static field when they all have a lot of HP, like right now with Bale Waves. It's all a nice, beautiful symphony, the Lightning Sorceress. I know it doesn't sound like we're playing Diablo II when I say that, but it is. Oh, oops. I did not mean to do that, actually. I would not use Charge Bolt here in this situation. No, don't do that! Well, it is on my other... So, yeah, I'm using Static Field. Chain Lightning, because they're kind of not in a nice, neat little line. Now here, I can actually teleport on top of him and use Charge Bolt. That monster was insanely lightning resistant. Bartek the Bloody, because he had an extra lightning resistance stat on him, which means that he had a lot of HP to burn through in terms of just doing lightning damage to him. It was very hard. So what I did was I teleported on top of him with the Mercenary, and then I swapped to Charge Bolt, and Charge Bolt does that much damage per bolt. There's 24 of them, and it's like concentrated damage, and instead of having that nasty minimum damage that you have on your main skills, really train down monsters that have a ton of HP or are very heavily lightning res with that ability a lot easier, because there'll be a lot of like attacks that just aren't pure duds. So in general, I feel like with the lack of minimum damage, it actually gives you a bit of an advantage there. On average, though, there isn't much of a difference. It's just all about RNG, but it can definitely be frustrating to train down a very highly lightning resistant enemy with lightning sometimes, because it just Sometimes you just don't get those rolls. Charge Bolt has better frames too, that is correct. So on the lightning frames, for instance, you're shooting slower. So lightning once again has those special 117 FCR frames we were talking about, whereas Charge Bolt actually does fire faster. So it's more consistent. It does a lot less maximum damage, but it's very consistent. So I'm actually going to use it against Bale to kind of demo how to use a Lightning Sorceress effectively against Bale. So we're going to use Static Field, get him down to 50%. Sometimes you get him past 50% a bit because Conviction is kind of generous like that. And then we're just going to jump right on top of him with Teleport. And we're going to use Static Field. Just hold down the button, shift left click. Teleport again. Try to get as close to directly on top of him as possible. And I actually, on average, will probably kill him faster than lightning. Not always, but on average, it will kill him probably a bit faster than lightning because of the better frames and because of the. So it's great for single targets. It's great for single targets that are highly lightning resistant, and it's great for ones that just have a lot of health because you're able to fire so fast and you're able to pump out more consistent lightning damage. Alright, well, that is it for the demo portion of the standard Lightning Sorceress. And we also showed off all her stats, gear, and everything else. So now you kind of know what she's strong at. She really excels at elite sniping, Bale running. Bale waves don't have lightning immunes, as you can see. I just melted through the Bale waves. I melted through Bale. The static field and so much lightning damage is just a dream. More negative light res, the better, of course. And having it faceted in our Soul Griffins is really nice. This build, of course, once again, was very balanced for all those areas. So now we're kind of going to go through some specialty builds for specialty farming, or at least some of them are even stronger than this build in some of those areas we just did. We'll kind of explain why, and we're going to go through that now. So, Lightning Sorceress, my favorite character, is just awesome. Now, next, we're going to go over the Players 1 Magic Find variant of the Lightning Sorceress. So yeah, she's insanely good at Bale running, Uber Key farming, Arcane Sanctuary farming, and high player count. And just overall, just all those things, elite sniping. Really, really good. Yeah, the elite sniping and arcane are just amazing, and the Uber Key farming, the Bale running is just so smooth. The Lightning Sorceress, she really does those farms insanely well. Of course, one thing I'm going to mention again is that the Lightning Sorceress is pretty gear dependent. Before you have Infinity, at the very least, and before you have Griffins, this character is not that powerful compared to, like, let's say, a Blizzard Sorceress in most situations. Even with Infinity, when you can break most lightning immunities, until you get more negative enemy lightning res, it really feels pretty weak against those lightning immunities you broke. Unless you actually wear a specific setup, which we're actually going to go over, but at least with Infinity, you're good to go potentially. With Griffins, it's just really good at everything, and it feels really nice as well. But we'll go over some other builds that address some of those other concerns here right this second. So what we're going to do is we're going to just airlift this gear over here to other characters so that we can show off some of the other variants of the build. I think that one. Yeah, we're not using the Enigma anymore. It's fine. Nope. So for the other variations of this build, Enigma is not used. Enigma is used on my favorite Jack of all trades version, which is the one we just went over. Yeah, I love Enigma. Enigma is really good. Alright, so I think we got everything I need. Could be wrong. We'll go pick it up on the other character, though. And get going. Okay. So To show you guys this other stuff pretty quickly here, we have another lightning sorceress. Yeah, I have a lot of sorceresses on my grill. I've made lots of sorceresses. So I expect another one. And on this one, we are going to do the magic find variant of the Savage Pocket. Don't let dreams be memes, man. Get it. Alright, okay, I guess I didn't need all that. I definitely went a bit overboard. That's okay. Better to be over-prepared than under-prepared. Alright, I think we are set. Yeah, so 120 FCR. Yep, this is it. This is the build. Okay. So this Lightning Sorceress is designed for Players 1, what we're about to go over right now. Yep, it's Griffins. So this Sorceress is literally designed for P1. It's not designed for playing in a party. However, if you do decide to play this character in a party, you'll have awesome MF, but you're going to have to use a lot of static field. You're going to be using static field all the time. Even when the monsters maybe don't have a ton of health. Because everything's going to have a ton of health. Because you're not going to be doing nearly that much damage. Alright, anyway. In general, you just want a lot of MF, res charms, and everything else up in here. I am actually... Right, yeah. I am going to use only the 60 FHR frame on this sucker. I think... Yeah, okay. Yeah, we're gonna use the 60 FHR frame. Alright, so I'm just gonna stack my whole inventory with Magic Find and Res. This character is especially good at finding those ultra rare items by getting that Magic Find pumped up to the max and sniping elites in Players 1. That is what you do with it. Especially good when you're playing solo on Battle.net, or if you're playing in single player and you just want a very efficient Magic Finder that finds those ultra rare items like Death's Fathom and things like that off of elite packs. And you know, Death's Fathom, Griffins, all kinds of those crazy items. Those elites and the elite packs themselves have the best odds, but mostly just the elite. So what we're going to do with this character is we're literally just going to snipe stuff. So we're going to do a couple areas. We're not going to do all the areas that we did on the standard version, but just to show kind of like how you play this version of the Lightning Sorceress. You're not going to be using a lot of Chain Lightning on this character because Chain Lightning is a lot more effective when the monsters are dropping more items in general, the random monsters. Since elites always drop an item, it's not going to be affected in Players 1, but the random monsters will. They're not going to drop a lot of items in Players 1, so in general, Chain Lightning is not going to be as effective. It's going to be something you're kind of going to have on the back burner, but you're not really going to be using it as much. You're just going to be teleporting and using lightning. That's how you want to do it. You're going to want to destroy the elite, teleport to the next elite pack, and continue. Alright, sweet. Hey, what's up, BSK? How you doing? I have found a lot. I have found 10 on Pluggy Glam. Where have I found my Griffins? I think most of the Griffins I found are either in the pit or Worldstone. But that being said, you can find this item in any high-level area. You can find it in 84 areas as well. You can even find it in 83 areas from elites and champions as well. So it's really good stuff. Yell at the chat! You're allowed to yell at the chat, that's fine. Alright, so I think we're ready to go. So before we actually start playing this character, you know, actually playing it, let's go over a couple of things here. So this character is all about the Magic Find. This is a 600 Magic Find Lightning Sorceress. That's a lot for a Lightning Sorceress. You could get even more if you wear Oculus instead of a Shootas, and then maybe you can wear like an MF FCR ring, and you can get could squeeze out another like 40 to 50 MF for sure, but on a Lightning Sorceress, that's a lot. Sorceresses in general are amazing for magic finding, so this is definitely a very key variant here. This player's one magic find, because they're very fast. Their damages, their abilities do a ton of damage. Their damages do a ton of abilities. Their abilities do a ton of damage, and overall they just their gear is kind of made for it too. Like even Tal Rosh's. So before we start actually farming with the ability, let's kind of explain what changed from the standard version of this build. So the Mercenary is exactly the same. We even still use Might Aura because we want the Mercenary to crack things over the head. And we want them to kill any elites that may have some magic light resistance on them as fast as possible. So we're going to use all the MF charms. We don't have any lightning skillers, and because lightning skillers are totally unnecessary. We only have 22k high-end lightning damage. That's pretty typical. You can even on a player's one build maybe pump it up to like 24. You can use maybe 1 or 2 skillers if you feel like this is a bit too weak. But honestly, it's not. It's just fine. In players one, the monsters don't have as much health, and you're still going to suffer from that minimum damage problem anyway, no matter how much damage you get on this character. So to an extent, it almost doesn't even matter as much as you might think it does. We have, of course, just a lot of res. We also have some mana as well for some quality of life. You might notice our HP is pretty low too. Definitely, good thing the monsters don't do as much damage in Players 1. But overall, we're definitely more vulnerable to dying, even though it's still Players 1 for sure. We're still using a Geeds. Geeds is like required on this build though. You're definitely just going for the Magic Find. Magic Find, using nasal rings or 40 MF rings or just blue rings with just tons of MF. I just want Chance Guards, still using War Travelers. 3-piece Towels is incredible for Magic Find. You get a ton of Magic Find on Towels itself. You get even more than Enigma, believe it or not. You get MF on the belt, so you get even more MF there. And you get 65 just by having 3-piece Towels. So it's just a ton of MF. And you still get a lot of res, and you get your you maintain your FCR. You still want that 117 FCR breakpoint no matter what on a Lightning Sorceress. No matter what. Yeah, I know, I only have 48 Word Traps. Yeah, the Word Traps could be upgraded. Yes, I know. After over a year on this Grail, I still haven't found 50s. Even though I found 50s like everywhere else. I know. What a joke. What a joke. Anyway. Alright, Ista to Ashudas. Ashudas overall is just going to be really amazing. I don't have a 100% perfect one on here to show you, but if you had like a perfect lightning damage one with 3 skills, you're doing a lot of damage, and you're able to put an Ist in it. You can't put an Ist in a Hodo, so because this build really focuses that Magic Find, you're going to want to use Ashudas or Oculus. Oculus, if you don't mind bouncing around. I don't like bouncing around as much, so in the 2 areas I'm going to show this character off in, I don't want to be bouncing around. Especially not in the World Stone, so we'll show that in a second though. Putting an Ist in the armor is also good for Magic Find. I do like having at least 1 lightning facet. You can put 2 if you want. It definitely helps a little bit in the pit against the archers and against some lightning immunes. But I think the negative 25 is pretty decent considering we're in Players 1 still. I wouldn't go too ham on the facets. I definitely focus on the Ists if all possible. Just boost it up. I know that we're diminishing returns with our Magic Find right now are pretty harsh, but even every MF frame counts when it comes to finding like a super rare item. So when that's what your entire goal is, to find the super rare items and target those elites for them, this is really what you want to do. And we're still wearing our CTA and shield. Now, kind of went over that it's all about the Magic Find. Stats-wise, it's literally the same deal as the standard version. You're just maxing out your strength for your gear, and then you put in all the vitality. Skills, pretty much the only main difference, honestly, between this and the standard version is that you have to put a point to teleport because you're not using Enigma. And as you can see, we're only using level 33 lightning compared to like level 45, 46, so pretty big difference. But it's literally the same thing, though. I didn't even bother putting a point in Thunderstorm, though, on this version of the build because I just wanted get even more warmth for that mana regen because we have a little bit less mana as well. I know it's not scaling as well because we have less mana, but it's going to help us out a bit. Okay, here we go. Let's go. Best players won. Yep, that is very true. So I would not consider this build necessarily be the best players one farmer in the game, but it is one of the best. As a sorceress, it is one of the top builds for players one farming, and this specific setup specializes in it. So let's go play our players one Magic Find Lightning Sorceress. So we got 600 Magic Find, stacked to the brim. You can stack even more though. You can stack a little bit more damage. There's always a bit of preference when it comes to any of these builds, but you'll notice though that I'm still one-shotting these monsters, and that's because we're back in players one. So this build really is designed for lower player count. I'll emphasize again. You have way less damage on the high end, which means on average, if we were doing high player count, we'd be doing a lot less damage. Alright, so as you can see, this is a kind of dangerous build, but you know, it's a softcore build for sure. We're not super concerned with dying. If I died, it wouldn't be the end of the world. So we're just searching out those elite packs. We can use Chain Lightning if we want to kill the density, but we don't have to. We're mostly looking for these champions and elites here. So right there we found the Heavenly Guard. Nice unique light plate. Looking for things a lot more impressive than that when we're playing this character though. Oh look, another one. The elites are just dropping everywhere. I mean the unique items. That's the kind of stuff we want to see. Oh look, Pull Rune. Very nice. Here's one super chest or sparkling chest from Pit. Dropping the Pull Rune. That's pretty cool. I guess I can go to player 7 temporarily, just kind of show, like, kind of how this build struggles a lot more in player 7 than the other one, than the standard version of the Lightning Sorceress. So let's do the Pit again in player 7, just to try to show off, maybe this is why this is not the best build for running in parties or in P7 on single player. Alright, so here we go. Yeah, so it's just taking a lot longer to kill shit. Now, luckily the mercenary was there, but yeah. Now we can use static field, and we can get pretty good mileage on that, but it's still just going to be slower overall. Luckily static field definitely makes things a lot easier though. If we're in P7 with low lightning damage, this is definitely the way to play it. So it just takes a couple of extra casts, right? But, you know, a couple extra casts throughout the whole place definitely adds up. Definitely struggles a bit more. Okay. It's not too bad though, all things considered. You can definitely run P7 pits like with this kind of build. Now, if you try to go into what we're about to do here, it's definitely a lot rougher. A goal? No. A gold dagger? So, as you can see, against these lightning immunes, look how tough it is for me to kill them with this much lightning damage in player 7. Yeah, that was really rough, right? This is why we wouldn't be wanting to target like density with this build version of the build. With Chain Lightning, you can definitely Lightning Sorceress is definitely pretty good, or at least decent as a density clearer. But you're not really going to want to do that with a build that has no lightning skillers, lacks some more damage on the rest of your gear. Overall, just lacking skills and damage. But anyway. Go target elite packs again. So sometimes in players 1 you even have to fire twice, but for the most part you won't have to. keep on top of your potting sometimes. It's gonna get rough. We don't have Enigma either, so our health pool is much lower. Don't have a life per kill either. Yeah, players 1. That's a very lightning resistant enemy, and it still went down pretty fast in players 1, so. For elite targeting, this is definitely where it's at. That's why we still maintain at least 60 FHRs so we can get out of those situations. Oh man. Nasty, nasty stuff. Okay. So yeah, anyway. That's pretty clear. You can even skip the packs that are lightning immune with a conviction, so you can get more efficiency out of her. Thought there might have been an elite there, I guess not. She is the sniper. She is the sniper, and she wants really good items. Obviously, Baleways won't give nearly as much experience in players 1. But luckily with Static Field, even with this build, it's not terrible. You can still farm Bale in player 7. Turn up the player count if you really want to. Oh! Alright, so our battle orders went down, right? Why it's important to pay attention to that. It's another item you can pick up with telekinesis, by the way. Potions. Also use telekinesis to knock an enemy against the wall. Want the mercenary to kill it. Don't need to do it against a physical immune enemy though. That's not gonna help. Alright.
Good afternoon.
Command is HC Light Sorc. We're not currently playing the hardcore Light Sorc. However, that is the command if you want to see her gear. No spaces, Cheesy Bacon. No spaces. Just HC Light Sorc. Okay. Can someone help him out? Help him out, guys. Help him out. You guys are smart in the chat. Help him out. Okay. Ugh. So yeah, for elite targeting, 600 MF, still do a pretty solid amount of damage. You at least have still a pretty decent amount of survivability. Stack your res as much as you can, but at least get maximum resistances, just like on the standard version of the build. I still have at least 60 FHR if you're going for a lot of MF. You don't have to worry about hit recovery as much if the monsters aren't doing quite as much damage as they are in players 1 versus players 7. That is how that works. Extremist! What's up, man? What's up, Jesse Lee? Oh, a lot of Frost Sorc. Yeah, Frost Sorc is really nice. You should skip them or have the mercenary kill them, Jesse Lee, if you're talking about cold immunes on a cold Sorc for sure. Alright. So, that's basically all I wanted to show there is just some of the elite targeting in players 1. Also, I wanted to show off kind of how it struggles a bit more in player 7, especially in Worldstone Keep. And how you might have to use more static field, especially when your lightning damage is lower. But you can definitely pump that MF way higher than the standard version was. The standard version hits, I'd say, pretty comfortably, somewhere between 250 and 350, depending on the exact setup and configuration. This one can get as high as 650, so just target the elite packs, find those insanely rare uniques, sets, and those GGs. Alright, next up, we're going to go over a different variant of this build. So, normally you don't even want this. This is because I had to show off multiple builds on this character. So, just put an MF charm there. Just put 2 more strengths into your stats. More strengths. Alright. Next up is actually a pretty interesting variation of the Lightning Sorceress. Wonder if chat can guess what the next one is going to be. It's on the screen. I'll give you a hint. It's in front of your face! What's the next one, guys? What are we gonna do next? You know what? Yeah, it's fine. Okay. So we're going to want to do, let's see, ooh. No, not players 2MF. That's not even a thing. No. Stop it. Back, you failed. Okay, no, not quite. Nova Sorc. No, we're sticking with the Lightning Sorc. So the next... we have a lot of interesting ideas in chat here. Interesting but good ideas. I actually think... Okay, yeah, I think we do this. Well... We're gonna have to see what our FCR situations look like. 120? Okay. Okay. Well, okay, there's a couple different ways to do this. Oh wait, we put on the wrong armor actually, that's why. Oh, of course. Oh no, my Stone of Jordans don't match anymore. Okay, anyway. I think we're done messing around. I actually get enough res on this build? Not really. Well, if we want to keep our res at least halfway decent, it'll be easier to do it this way. Yeah, okay, there we go. Yeah, that's a lot more sensible. So, there's a lot of ways to do this variation of the Lightning Sorceress, but what we're going to be focusing on with this one is Crescent Moon. Now, there's only one stat on Crescent Moon that really makes it really good for a Lightning Sorceress, but good it is nonetheless. Monsters that have a lot of lightning resistance after being broken by Infinity still have a lot of lightning resistance after you break them. And Griffins will get them down quite a bit, but they still have a pretty solid amount of lightning res. One way to reduce the res even further and to make sure more of your damage gets through is Crescent Moon. Crescent Moon means you're not going to be wearing like Hodo, you're not going to get a lot of res elsewhere as well. And you might actually be struggling with res at least semi decently. That being said though, Crescent Moon is very, very solid. How did I... Dude, there's way too much FCR on here. What the heck? Okay, yeah, we need to get our... Okay, let me see. How much cold res? Yeah, this is not the build. Made some mistakes here. Yeah, okay. So we just need... Hey, you know what? Let's just use Mars for simplicity, just so I have res. That'd be nice. But there's a lot of things you can do, and we'll kind of explain that here in a second. Do I have my Mars here, though? Yeah, I don't think so. Eth Zerkarax, how hipster. Yeah, I know. We'll explain that. We're going to explain this build here in a second. So, this build specializes in certain things. She's actually really strong. Some people prefer the Crescent Moon Lightning Sorc build to even the standard build in almost all scenarios. Cool stuff. Alright, so... Alright, now our FCR isn't crazy overstacked. Okay, so... Just like with the normal standard Lightning Sorceress, in general you're going to want to hit 117 FCR. There's a lot of options here though, not going to lie, so there's not just one way to skin a cow in this case. No cows in the secret cow level were harmed in the making of this video though, so don't worry. Lightning Sorceress isn't even insanely amazing in the cow level, so we're not even touching it today. But anyway. Alright, so the main focus of the Crescent Moon Lightning Sorceress is the Crescent Moon Moonward. Crescent Moon Moonward, in general, is just really strong at reducing enemy lightning resistance. It's a one-hander, so you can just put it in any weapon. You can put it in a crystal sword. I put it in an F Berserker Axe because I still need enough strength to wear a spirit anyway, so it doesn't matter. You can put it whenever you want. War Axe. It's all about that stat, though. It's pretty much giving us nothing else. It's giving us some mana per kill and some Magic Sword. Magic Sword's kind of nice against some monsters like the Bone Spear Snakes. But for the most part, it's really not giving us much except for that negative enemy lightning res stat. That plus Griffins gives us negative 60. And on top of that, at least with the facet in it, we get negative 85 from Infinity. So we have upwards of negative 145 to an enemy negative lightning res, which is the primary feature of this build. If possible, we still want to hit the 86 FHR breakpoint. If 60, not at all. We are not really focusing on Magic Find super hard on this build because we want to do a lot of damage. So in general, I think... yeah, you know what? Even need to put away some of these, I think. Yeah. In general... I don't know why we had that there. Okay, that's better. That's what we want. Okay. Life skill are sweet. Okay, so in general, we want damage. Lots of damage, just like with the standard version of the build. Now you might notice that our raw damage, no it doesn't. So it caps at negative 100 enemy res. So with negative 145, it's actually overkill against monsters that have 0 light res, which there are a lot of them. And this is something to explain compared to the standard Lightning Sorceress. So the standard Lightning Sorceress already exceeds that negative 100 with just Griffins and Infinity against monsters that have very little lightning res or 0 lightning res. This build against monsters that have like 50 lightning res or higher, or even like even if they're immune and you can break it with Infinity, is going to do a ton of damage to those monsters because we are greatly increasing our enemy negative light res stat. We're going to demo that here in a second. The lightning damage overall is lower. So the base lightning damage is actually a lot lower. Actually with bow, it is 34k versus 44k of the standard version of the character. So it's 10k less maximum light damage. But because the minimum doesn't change at all, that's maybe not as much as you might think. And now that we have all this negative enemy res, we are going to be able to plow through all kinds of monsters you might not even think that we should be able to plow through on a Lightning Sorceress. Even in player 7, so... for this build, we're going to go back to player 7 just to show how much damage this character does against a lot of monster types. Remember, the Crescent Moon and the base doesn't matter. In general, with the rest of the gear changes compared to the standard Light Sorceress, you're looking to maintain your resistances. That can be kind of hard to do with Enigma. It's possible to do with Enigma. You can actually do it with Enigma if you want. I'm using Skin of the Viper Magi though, just to make it a little simpler to stack or at least have decent resistances. Still using all of our skillers we used on the standard version. And actually using some FCR Res MF, using your FCR Res MF small ring as well. You could use 2 FCR rings and then you can like swap this out for Ormus. So you can use another FCR ring and then take the 20 FCR on the Ormus and do even more damage. This is an option for sure. Your res is going to struggle really hard though. You're going to really need some insanely good charms, and even then it might not be enough. Or you might need insanely good rings. But we're going to show off this on a different build. We're not really going to show this off on this build. We'll show it off in a moment, but you definitely can use an Ormus in this scenario. Just to pump up the damage even more, put another lightning facet in it. If you want the damage to be pumped up a bit more, you can put a lightning facet in it as well. This build doesn't really focus on Magic Find, but hitting at least 200 is nice, so it's not a bad idea to have Magic Find here and there. You're not going to have Magic Find on the weapon, though. You're really going to want to focus damage, and since you have a lot of skillers, you're not going to have a lot of Magic Find in general, but you can get it where you can get it, and of course you're not using Enigma, so you're losing a lot of Magic Find there, too. But you're still hitting the 117 breakpoint, still hitting the FHR breakpoint at 89. You still only need enough strength to wear your gear. Ignore the number. You should have 156 for spirit. And just put the rest of the points into vitality. As for the skills, it's still identical to the standard lightning sorceress as well. Except for putting 1 point into teleport. One thing to note is that you are using Enigma. Obviously, you don't have to do that. But there are no other changes to the skills, though. No other changes to the skills whatsoever. It's pretty much the same thing. It's actually more similar to the MF Players 1 build in terms of how you skill her, but it's lightning sorceresses are almost all the same. They don't really change much skill-wise. That's just how the build works. It's very simple. Of course, you can choose to put a point to Thunderstorm if you want. There's definitely some things you can choose electively. Mercenary is the same. Nothing really changes on any of those fronts. Alright, so now I've kind of explained what the goal of this build is to do a ton of damage, even to monsters that have a lot of lightning resistance. Even after being broken by Infinity, having their immunity broken. Let's go show her off where she plays the best. So, I think I'll start off in a standard area. So this is one of the Lightning Sorceress's best areas in general. But I would say this version of the Lightning Sorceress actually performs a lot better than the standard Lightning Sorceress in Chaos. Chaos has high lightning resistance on the Venom Lords, and it has lightning immunes from the Stormcasters. Because of that, this build actually shreds Chaos way easier. It also shreds River if you want to do some River farming as well. Given that you have, you can also even further reduce the resistance on the Abyssal Knights. Or the Abyss Knights. Alright, let's go. So, we're going to do Chaos here in a second, but one thing I should note is, yeah, you can swap things out for Oramus, you can swap them out. There's definitely a lot of gear you can swap out here. Just make sure your resistances are at least decent and everything's kind of kosher. Maybe your MF's decent. Alright, so we still have decent MF, but she's not really going for it super hard. Alright, let's get it. So player 7, 120 FCR, and that is a Wizard Spike. Sweet! I'm not gonna bother IDing it. So you see these Abyss Knights here? Once we get the Infinity to break them, they die fast with this build. You can one-shot the Stormcasters pretty much too, which is definitely not happening on the And if we use Static Field, we use Chain Lightning as well, we're actually destroying player 7. Like, this character, this version of the Lightning Sorceress does insanely well in Chaos. You might have noticed with the standard version of the the Lightning Sorceress, the standard version of the Lightning Sorceress, she was at least struggling a little bit here, right? She wasn't. She was definitely. It definitely took her a lot of lightnings to kill the monsters in player 7 before. Now, even in a full party with Crescent Moon, we are absolutely murdering Chaos. This is where the Lightning Sorceress can really shine in a full party when you're doing Chaos in general. And overall, it just makes it really strong here. Once again, the main reason it's really effective in Chaos compared to standard Lightning Sorceress is that there's so much lightning resistance from the monsters in Chaos. Yeah, this is player 7 and it's Milton. And you can even use some Static Field still to help you out. Okay, nice. Alright, She has less health though than the standard lightning sorceress, and she has less raw damage, which is why against monsters with little lightning res, and in general, in terms of being a jack of all trades, she's a little weaker. Monsters that have less lightning res and monsters that have that are stronger are going to do more damage against you. Monsters with less lightning res are going to do less damage against them, at least on the high end. You even have less MF than the standard version of the lightning sorceress. So there are weaknesses for sure to this approach. That being said though, nothing shreds players 7 chaos like a Crescent Moon lightning sorceress. And Diablo, with so much negative enemy res, the static fields will get him down to 50% almost instantly. And then if I jump on top of him with Charge Bolt, it's just toast. Toast! Toast! He's dead. That's it. This is also a very effective build for boss killing because bosses have a lot of resistance. Most bosses have 50 light res, which means that if you're hitting 145 negative enemy light res, that means you're getting them down to negative 95 lightning res. And if I had another facet in here, I'd actually get them down to the their minimum res, which is negative. So definitely destroys bosses too, and it definitely clears these areas with a lot of lightning immunes. Of course, we should also show this version of the build in Worldstone. Worldstone has a lot of immunities going on, and in Worldstone 2, there's a lot of lightning immunes, like souls. Obviously, not good at mitigating damage, but you can see that we're slicing through lightning immunes like butter. These are also lightning immunes. You can also slice through them like butter in Player 7. You really wouldn't expect a character like this to perform so well against monsters that are immune to its element in nearly highest player count. Player 7 is the highest player count for item drops, of course, but you wouldn't expect it at all. It's just really crazy damage. Alright, so I think that was a conviction soul, so that's nasty stuff. We don't have that much res, so luckily we didn't die. Yikes. Okay. Epic Deuce, thank you so much for that, man. Sometimes you gotta get, Are there any Light Sorc strats that aren't room word heavy? You mean gear intensive? Eldritch, Shank, and Arcane Sanctuary in higher player count. There you go. That's how you farm items on a ungeared Lightning Sorceress, which is why, as I mentioned earlier in the guide, I really don't recommend starting with a Lightning Sorceress, unless you want to farm Arcane, and then it's not bad. You can farm some high runes early on, and you can get it. Light Sorc is a wealth piggy, for sure. Lightning in general is a lot stronger with Conviction. That being said, other lightning builds like the Javazon, for instance, are a lot better without gear because they simply destroy density a lot easier, even without all that negative enemy res. Because, you know, Javazon, for instance, has Javazon at least has whatchamacallit, Lightning Fury, and Lightning Fury is just crazy. Jesus. So yeah, we're amped right now. Amplify damage is on us. That's an extra strong Fanaticism Aura Deathlord in Player 7, so yeah, they do maximum damage almost to us in Player 7, so it's just really nasty stuff. But it's okay. This is a softcore build, and we're playing in softcore. And Crescent Moon is just, it shreds. As you can see, this is Player 7, it just shreds everything. You never have to worry about it so long as you can break the lightning immunity. The bats have their lightning immunity broken, and you can see we're still doing tons of damage to them. We're still doing 34k, so it's just a lot of damage. And imagine if you wore Ormus, you could do even more damage with this approach. You could even further increase your damage. And without all that negative enemy light res, it's going to scale very well. There's a monster we can't kill, but that's okay. And bam, 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 bam. Telekinesis is awesome. Yeah, normally, well, yeah, so my chat's watching this, and they're like, you know, they're used to me playing hardcore, so this is my softcore Grail project. It's actually what I started streaming with. So no, I'm not always a hardcore player, but I definitely really love hardcore, especially these days. And when D2R comes out, we will be starting hardcore. Okay. So yeah, this is player 7. Slice, 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 slice. Slice. Slice, 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 like butter. But Chaos and Worldstone are an amazing way to demo the power of the Crescent Moon Lightning Sorceress. But, because the monsters typically have a lot of resistances and immunities, potentially. But we're also going to demo some areas that maybe are not great for the Light Sorc in general, but would be great for other characters, just to show you guys how strong this approach is in terms of just making her be able to kill absolutely everything in the game. There's some areas you might think the Lightning Sorc should stay away from at all costs that we're about to farm here in a second. I'm going to show you guys the power of Crescent Moon. Yeah, Crescent Moon is not a joke. But, so yeah, no resistances at all. The monsters are just totally down in the dumps when it comes to the res. They literally no answer to this. And with Static Field plus Crescent Moon, Chain Lightning, Lightning, and even Charge Bolt are going to do a ton of damage. We also don't even have to worry about Bartek or having a ton of lightning res because we're just reducing their light res so much. I only have a melee Sorc on my LOD actually, stone free. They are, Demodius. I hope you're having a great day. Anyone want to help Dirty out? What's up, Dirty? How you doing? That is correct with the Zodran. Yes, Aland. We had a roll on it yesterday, and we got trolled again. The item is impossible to find, Alandman. It's impossible. Okay. I'll reiterate, by the way, this is the Lightning Sorceress in general is my favorite build in LOD. My favorite build in standard Diablo 2, vanilla Diablo 2, whatever you want to call it. And yeah, Crescent Moon, in some ways Crescent Moon, I mean the standard version of the Lightning Sorc is versatile, but in some ways this version of the build may be even more versatile. And of course for player 7 with lots of lightning resistance, I'd say it's better, but you know, we talked about her weaknesses. It can even be harder to stack Riz on this version of the character. Let's kill Bale though in player 7. So normally like Bale maxes out XP wise in players 3 and everything. We're gonna kill her in player 7 just to kill him, sorry. Kill her. Think about killing the Light Sorc. You might notice with so much negative light res that with Static Field, normally Static Field will only drop bosses to negative 50 or a bit beyond. But if you get that negative enemy light res up, you can actually sometimes Static Field Bale and other bosses almost down to 25%. That usually should never happen, but if you get those like perfect Static Field rolls, you can actually get him down even further. And then with Charge Bolt, Bale is not long for this world. Even in player 7. And we found a green essence. So, As a Bale runner, this might be an even more effective one, but it is more challenging to get your res up, so... Once again, your MF of course isn't going to be higher, and your raw damage is lower, which means against some monsters it's not going to be as good. But against Bale and Bale Waves and Worldstone in general, especially Worldstone 2 that has a lot of lightning immunes, and Chaos, this is a very, very nice build. One would say optimal in high player count for sure. And now what we're going to farm is an area that is a farming area that's really only optimal for a couple builds in general because it's so far away from the warp. Normally you'd only touch this area with a Blizzard or a Fireball Sorceress. However, well, there's also a couple other builds you can mess around with, but because Sorceress has such high teleport speed, this is definitely an area you can mess around with if you want. So, Mausoleum, you might be scratching your head and might be thinking, Dark Humility, you're crazy. All the monsters in here are lightning immune. Are you sure you can actually kill them fast in player 7 with a lightning sorceress? The answer is yes. So long as you're wearing Crescent, Moon, Griffins, and Infinity. So... Oops, sorry, wrong attack. So yeah, there's some lightning immune enemies just going down. Now, it's still slower because they still have a decent amount of lightning res. Because these monsters are all immune to start with, so you're not going to want to actually farm this area with a lightning sorc. I'm mostly doing this area as a sheer demonstration of her power. Look at those damage spikes on a lightning immune enemy with a lot of HP. That is just so crazy. And in Players 1, you can actually pretty comfortably farm the Mausoleum with this build, actually. But, you know, not you showing that. I think you guys get the right idea, though. Like, even with the standard Light Sorceress, you would actually struggle quite a bit in there. Especially in Player 7, you would definitely have a lot of problems. So this character doesn't have lots of problems in there. Yes, well, that area isn't amazing to begin with, but, you know, that's definitely a farm area that definitely works for some characters. With the Crescent Moon Light Sorc, it also works. Another area that I normally wouldn't touch with a Lightning Sorceress, but works pretty well on a Crescent Moon variant of the Lightning Sorceress, is Ancient Tunnels. Ancient Tunnels has mages that are very lightning resistant, even after breaking their immunity. Which definitely are very challenging to kill, which are right here, these dudes. But with Crescent Moon, it's fine. Normally with a standard build, especially without Infinity, it would take 1 billion shots to kill them. Overall, we are just sailing through. And find the elite, that'd be nice. There we go. And if they have other stats, the elites, that make them so immune that you can't break with Infinity, you can still use the Mercenary, of course. This physical damage, with so much physical damage of Fortitude, and the speed with Andes, and of course some really strong F elite pull-arm, it's gonna be the killer. So yeah, even in Player 7 you can farm Ancient Tunnels with a Lightning Sorceress. In Players 1, once again, areas like Ancient Tunnels, even Maggot Lair and Mausoleum become possible for farming, and in Player 7 they're at least not a hassle. That is the power of Crescent Moon. Alright, so I think that's it for the Crescent Moon demo. Let's move on to a different variant of this character. So now we're doing... You guessed it, even if you didn't guess it. You guys talking about conditional probability in the chat. Wow. That's good stuff. This, as someone that did a lot of stats, I respect it. Have faith, Alan. I know. We're up to 14 on my Grails alone. 1 on BattleNet and 4 on PD2. 19 Templars. Only 2 had no chance to roll Tyraels. The rest all had at least a chance. because they're at least level 87 or higher. Yeah, we've struggled, man. That item's just been a struggle. All right, anyway, we're going to go into the 200 FCR Lightning Sorceress. So this Sorceress is especially good at some of those strengths we talked about with the standard Lightning Sorceress. We'll talk about kind of what you want to do with this character if you happen to want to make one. She's really fun, though, because she teleports at the fastest teleport frame that is possible in the game. So, period. Out of all the classes, all the characters, she's just fast. She is Sanic. Sanic, not the Hedgehog. Okay. Sweet. Alright, so. Oh wait, yep, we have one error in our gear. That's what I thought. Easy fix. Boom bada bam, boom bada bing. Alright, so let's unswap CTA. So F because we don't break them. I hit this, I slapped someone with something with this once. You only lose durability on weapons anyway when you actually use physical attacks with them, like melee attacks, not spells. And this one is on our offhand, so it's not going to take damage. Except very rarely when I swap to bow sometimes and take damage, but... Alright, so that was easy, right? I changed out of my clothes pretty easy for this one. So, this one is a 200... Oh yeah, you know what? We actually could use the other charm for this. Yeah, okay. So, you might notice a Reser in the tank. Well, once again, kind of with the Crescent Moon build, it really is a matter of preference. So, if you want to lower your damage a bit, or if you want to increase your damage a bit, you know, the Viper Magi versus the Ormus question kind of thing goes on. If I want my res to be at least halfway decent, though, I can put on Viper Magi. I'll lose like 3k damage, and I'll lose some negative enemy light res, but whatever, who cares? I'm actually, for this build, just going to show off Ormus, just to show off it does a ton of damage. So Ormus will get us to 40k damage, and this is with 200 FCR. So, 200 FCR is the highest teleport speed frame on a Sorceress, and it's just the fastest frame period, because it's on a Sorceress. You don't need it for lightning, though. The highest lightning frame is 194. Normally, you're not going for that because you have to sacrifice a lot of stats to be raw damage. Like, this still has less damage, even though I'm firing faster. The DPS is similar to a standard Light Sorc, but we do have less raw damage. Because we have, of course, the 194 chain lightning and lightning frame, special lightning frames. We have the 200 FCR teleport frame. Our MF definitely is going to suffer with this version of the build, though, because Enigma can nowhere ever be on this build because you need FCR from every gear piece. Every gear piece has to have FCR on it, or you're not reaching 200 FCR on your LOD Lightning Sorceress. This is not going to happen. You need it all, man. FCR absolutely everywhere. Well, that being said, you could use Wizard Spike, and then you can put on a Stone of Jordan, so... That's not completely true. That being said, though, you do lose a lot of damage with that approach, so for the most part, you just want FCR everywhere. Just keep it simple. 86 FHR, or like Suicide Branch or something like that, but 86 FHR once again, because of her charms and her spirit. You can hit 60, of course, just fine. And... yeah, it's pretty much that's pretty much the crux of it. Obviously, you can have better gear. So some of this gear I put on, we'll talk about the stats and the gear, how they're a bit different. The stats are the same. Skills, once again, are the same. Just as the other variants. Go back and watch those if you missed it. In general, the Lightning Sorc is a Lightning Sorc, and you don't change much stat-wise. Still not wearing Enigma, so you want that 1 point to teleport. That's about it. And gear-wise, so gear, probably not going to be using Oculus. You definitely want 40 or 50 FCR on the weapon to hit 200. You're going to be using a Shootaz for maximum damage. You can even use a Light Facet if you want more damage. Use an Ist if you want more MF. We're not even really hitting 200 MF, but we're close, so that's okay. We're using a lightning Ormus with almost a perfect lightning facet in it, but it is a perfect lightning Ormus. One day I'll probably just put a perfect lightning facet in it, but that Ormus is pretty much almost as good as it gets. Griffin's is as good as it gets. You could have a 220 Sorceress Ami, or at least a 220 Lightning Ami, so you could have another skill there. This is the only 20 FCR amulet I have that has at least one lightning skill on it, so it's pretty solid for this version of the build just to show it off. And Spirit. And of course you have like a Mage Fist there, and then of course you have FCR rings that have Res, MF, let's get it. Rack, still got your FCR, and then boots can't have FCR on them. They used to a long time ago, but not in the current version of LOD. And you still have your skillers and your res and damage. Okay, so that's pretty much it. You just want to put FCR everywhere, and you're good to go. So let's I wouldn't use this build for standard farming most of the time, and there's a few reasons for this. You might notice that it's really hard to get res on it. That's one thing. Even if you like took off some skillers, let's say you want to play in lower player count maybe, and then you took off some skillers and put some res on there, then you're sacrificing even more damage. And in general, it's kind of janky. I mean, it's just hard to get those stats up sometimes, and you're also very fragile once again because you're not using Enigma. That being said, though, it's very good for certain. With players 1 with 200, maybe, but once again, you have to sacrifice too much magic find. So this build, it's kind of it's one of those cases where it has some of those qualities of the players 1 magic find build, except without the magic find. It has more damage though, which is nice. So it's like it's not quite there. It's like it's so hard to get magic find on this build because you need an FCR. You can't even wear your chances, man. So it's definitely got some real weaknesses, but we're gonna play with trash res, and hopefully we don't die doing this demo. But if we do, I mean, that's understandable. We have 200 life. We have 40k top end damage. We don't have our Crescent Moon anymore, though, which means we also don't have the advantage of killing the lightning immunes faster. But there are definitely things we can do very well with the Sorceress. So, without further ado, let's start doing them. You can go elite sniping with it, but like I said, you don't have magic find on this version of the build. So you need to sacrifice it all, man. You need to get... If you take off these skillers, by the way, your damage actually drops really low. So you could do a 200 FCR Sorc with more magic find, but you can't do it with 3-piece towels. So your magic find at best will only hit like 350, which means you're way less efficient than a 117, 105 FCR teleport Lightning Sorc with 600 MF. Even with the diminishing returns, you can't really make up 250 MF, which a lot of it comes from 3-piece towels on that version of the build. A lot of it comes from chances, you know. Heck, we even have an Issa to shoot us on this build, and it's still not even hitting 200. It's definitely a bit of a struggle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show off what she's actually really good at doing. So what we're going to do is we're going to go key farming. Woo! Let's go! Look at her go! What? Okay, I'm done. Alright, I'm done. I'm done with that. He is a Ferrari! That's right. Now, we explained how to do key farming earlier with the standard version of the Sorc, so I'm just gonna do it. So, key farming takes a lot of teleporting sometimes, especially Countess. 5 levels, you gotta teleport the Black Marsh, but look how fast that was. And I was still messing around, too. Damn. We were actually in Players 3 there, so I had a... Players 3, you get at least a pretty decent key drop chance. So it's very optimal for the, this version of the build. But yeah, she is a Ferrari, and she farms keys faster than any other character in the game, really. With the lightning, of course, no immunity issues, just like we talked about earlier. And now we have 200 FCR. Of course, Same goes for Summoner. Oh, that didn't last long. Well, we got lucky with that, though. Now, one thing I should mention is this is a pretty solid Arcane Sanctuary farmer, especially if maybe you use Viper Magi to get your res up a bit. You can definitely justify doing Arcane farming with this. Look at this. I don't know. I'm kind of torn whether I prefer this or the other build. I feel like I like the Enigma version because you're not potting as much. Potting does waste time. Because you have LPK, and you have more health. And you even have more raw damage, so I don't know. It didn't seem like it was much faster, really. But you can run Arcane with this, so this is definitely a solid Arcane build. That being said, this is only P3 right now, so when you're doing Arcane, make sure you're always in player 7 for maximum drops off the chest and the ghosts. So I was actually doing a bad thing there. But when you're in player 7, the monsters are going to do a ton of damage to you. And with the Enigma version of the Light Sorc, you have a lot more health. You even have some DR. We don't have any damage reduction on this build. And on top of that, your res is definitely threatened at least a little bit by this build. Damage is fine in here, though. Damage is fine, perfectly fine, because you don't need Magic Find for runes and charms and items like that. Magic Find only affects the quality of bases, like whether an item rolls set, unique, rare, or magic, but it doesn't affect what the base is, so that includes the runes, which can't roll, you know, magic, set, all that stuff. MF doesn't matter there, so MF's not really the problem here. The problem is that we just take so much damage, and sometimes the ghosts roll some really nasty stats. Dying with this build, the 200 FCR version, is way more likely than the standard version, so keep that in mind. Definitely one of the more solid Arcane Sanctuary farming versions of the build, though. Ghosts don't have any lightning res, so you don't want Crescent Moon in here. That's not going to help you. Infinity and Griffins are enough, and just Infinity, honestly, almost does almost all the job by itself. And you're also not going to want the Player's 1 build that does no damage. So it's either going to be the standard Light Sorceress in here, or the 200 FCR. Absolutely. No way around it. Make sure you have keys when you're actually farming this. Of course, right now I'm just demoing it, but there's no keys in there. We're fine. But yeah, this is solid. This is P7 now, so you can see that, you know, this is definitely a very solid way to farm Arcane. You might shave off a little bit of time. I'd say from all the testing I've done with Arcane farming and all the data I've gathered, proves that the 200 FCR build is a little faster inside of Arcane, but you typically lose that time either from dying or having to buy more potions. So it's actually really close. I might even say this build's a little faster than the standard version overall, but you know, you kind of have to decide for yourself if losing some of the extra MF is worth it. Maybe you want to get some more Stone of Jordans. Maybe if losing all that survivability and possibly dying is worth it. You kind of have to decide for yourself. But both of those builds are very solid for the Player 7 Arcane farm. Okay, another key farm. Let's just do another key farm with her. So Arcane farming and key farming, definitely really solid, the 200 FCR version of the Sorceress. And there's some other things that are really solid too. Once again, teleporting and just key farming in general, just the teleport speed is going to do so much for you. Definitely a really fun way to play this character. Let's see here. Oh, yep, that one. Alright, so next up. Yeah, Arcane Power Farm is totally Dark Humility. Written all over it. And it's not the only reason this is my favorite build in LOD, but it definitely is one of those things that puts it up there. Alright, so one thing to note is that we're not Crescent Moon, right? So, in general, we're going to have to do Player 7, though, to maximize drops from this method. We're actually going to demo a method here of farming called the Chaos Seal Pop. So if you guys don't know what this is, Chaos is sold in a Lightning Sorceress, but on a 200 FCR version of it, that's where seal popping really really shines. Crescent Moon's great just for clearing Chaos and high player count in general. And of course the standard version can still do it decently well. And players won the standard version, of course, will never have any issues. But this version really shines when it comes to popping the seals. So what we're going to do is we're going to ignore the elites. We're going to kill the super uniques. We're going to pop all the seals except for the last one. And then we're going to teleport throughout Chaos and then return to that last seal and pop it. And what that will do is refresh the monsters. We'll make it to where the monsters get refreshed, and as long as you refresh them within a 7-ish second window, they will drop loot when you pop Chaos to spawn Diablo. So let's go. Now 200 FCR is really good for this because we have super fast teleport, which means we can refresh more monsters faster, and we can get back to that original seal. So, we don't really care about the elites. We're just gonna kill the... You do have to do this in player 7 though, unfortunately. Unfortunately for this version of the build. But we just pop Grand Vizier. I just pop Desace. Okay, I did kill it. Alright, just making sure. Alright, now. We're gonna pop this spawn here. We're gonna kill Infector. Now the only thing we have to do is pop that last seal. So what we're gonna do now... This is one of the best farmers in the game for the Chaos Seal pop because of how fast she teleports. We're gonna teleport all the way back to that end. And then pop. Damn. Alright. So you'll notice that they all dropped loot. Wow. Look at that. Got loot over here. Got loot over here. Now, a pop doesn't imply a magic find, so when you do this, you're mostly looking for like bases and ruins. That being said, you can even find the rarest items in the game doing this. You just have to get lucky. 0 magic find, you can still find any item in the game, but there's literally 0 MF is applied to this, so just keep that in mind. It's not very good for finding those like ultra rare items. It's good mainly for finding those other kinds of items. Alright, what's this one? We're not gonna tell you with the character screen open. Oh, you know what? I should demo that actually. Alright, I don't like doing that because I sometimes screw it up and die, but that's okay. So anyway, so that's how to pop Chaos with a 200 FCR Sorceress. And Lightning is really good for it because you can kill all the elites and not worry about Desace's immunities and anything else. And when you have Infinity, you can pop them quickly and then you can pop the last monster. So this is where this build version of the Lightning Sorceress really shines along with the key farming and Arcane. Mirage was actually talking about, so there's actually a teleport method that can actually improve your ability to teleport through Chaos a little faster. If you have the character screen open, you can actually extend the visible screen at which your teleport actually is affected. This is actually something that works, period, on all characters, but it's really effective on a Sorceress because of the way, of how fast teleport is in general. So if you have the character screen open and you teleport, you might notice that we're actually teleporting farther. Which is actually kind of cool, right? And so now I'm not... Just a little bit, though. Not by a huge amount. I'm not sure if that's going to be something on D2R, but theoretically it should be. I don't see them changing that mechanic. So yeah, we can just teleport like this. I wouldn't recommend doing that on hardcore, though, because it will obstruct your vision of monsters, but... perfectly fine in this case. Alright, so... yeah. I can do this over here, though. Ooh. Alright, anyway. You can show it again, though, if you guys want to see it again. Wow. Okay, so this is what you're going to want to do here. You go like this, with the screen open. You just go back. Oh, we got cut up on a well. That actually sucked. Oh, whatever. Anyway, you can just go back and forth, and it actually makes it a little faster. You gain, like, you know, a couple bit of time, and you can teleport all the way to the end. I could have actually teleported even farther to the end, because this character has so much time to refresh the monsters because she has such fast cast speed. You can also do this with other builds like a Hammered In, but he doesn't have as much cast speed, which makes it a little bit less effective, at least for popping. Obviously, the Hammered In is the king of chaos, but not going to go into that at the moment. Alright. Thank you, Mirage. I kind of demoed it weird. You want inventory screen here? Oh yeah, it's true. That's true. The inventory screen would be even better because then you're not teleporting into the character screen. That being said, it doesn't really matter so long as your cursor is all the way to the edge of the screen while you're doing it. Past the edge of the screen, I guess. But, you know, get the idea. It'll give you a little bit more mileage. It's definitely like one of those like high level mechanic things, so if you're a newer player, definitely don't worry about things like that. It's just like it's definitely one of those higher level mechanics. But I guess it's cool to demo. You don't even have to do it to do seal popping if you don't want to. It's just there. It's just there. No, this is not. This is LOD. We're actually finishing up a Lightning Sorc guide. We're almost done. Alright, anyway, one last thing to show off on the 200 FCR Sorc is how fast you find Bale. So we're going to go to the right of the entrance tile. It's just pointing that way. We're going to go to the right. We're going to go find World Stone 3. Now, there's no formula for finding Chrome. That's okay. So another very good thing is just simply finding Bale on this version of the Lightning Sorceress. So if you want to farm Bale and you want to avoid damage, it's awesome. One thing about 200 FCR I should note is that sometimes the monsters will even stand perfectly still and won't even attack you because you're teleporting so fast. They can't even react to this teleport frame very quickly sometimes. Which actually in some ways makes it safer than it might appear until you start actually farming the monsters, and that reminds you that, oh yeah, I just take a ton of damage. And when I have this shitty res, I actually die. Now, if you know, get more res and you sacrifice more damage, or you just, use Viper Magi and do something to sacrifice damage, basically, you can definitely make up for that. But yeah, in general, that's kind of how it works. So I'm going to kill Bale one more time with this character. Just to show you how the fast static field and all the attacks weave together. She's just so fast, man. Zoom, 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 zoom. Right. It can help in hardcore, but it also means sometimes, though, that, I don't know, it's just so easy to screw it up in hardcore. I mean, you do have a point with that, Death Be Proud, for sure, that if you use the character screen to teleport, you can even teleport outside their aggro range in some regards, but man, I don't like being even a little bit blind, man. It makes me nervous, personally, and I think it might make a lot of people nervous. It's tough, man. That being said, though, it's definitely a high-level technique for effective teleporting. Gets you gets you more distance, faster, and it can even prevent that. And on 200 FCR, this is even more effective because of how fast you're teleporting, right? So... Right, that's exactly why you want to do it in Chaos. More time nerf. Which is why you can even like even teleport a bit to the side and then to the bottom and then back to the seal, and you usually have enough time if you actually do that perfectly. Okay, anyway, stacked field. Ugh. Oh god, okay, yeah, that's not happening. We got a bow anyway. Our bow dropped. Okay. There's thunderstorm in this build rip. Alright, so and now we're gonna kill Bill. I need mama. Not enough mama. Okay. Damn. As you can see, not nearly as effective. I didn't use charged bolt that time though. I just used lightning, which is fine. One thing to note though is look how fast I fire my charged bolts. Definitely not bad. You can use it against bosses too. Like, you could even shred the Bale Waves decently well with that, just simply because of how good the frames are on Charged Bolt.
Good afternoon.
Take notes, take notes. Alright. Lastly, we're going to go over one more build today on our semi-comprehensive Lightning Sorceress guide. I always float between, it's not really, I guess nothing's comprehensive, right? But it's pretty close. Alright, so here we go. A hardcore sorceress. So, you might notice this character, if we go back to the character screen, is on my hardcore grill. He is a hardcore character, so we'll do this hardcore demo on an actual hardcore character, which I definitely prefer. I don't know if I'm always going to be able to do that on every build guide I do, but it's always nice. So this character is built specifically for hardcore, which means we're trying to get resistances stacked up to 75 if possible, but if not, as stacked as far as we can, especially for areas like Chaos and World Stone, which do a lot of elemental damage. We're looking for maximum block to prevent most damage. We're looking for high defense if possible, and we're looking for as close to 50% DR as we can get, if not 50% DR damage reduction on our gear. Sorceresses, you might think, Dark Humility, are a crazy character to play in hardcore, because they don't have enough health. Their health pool is just trash. You saw me dying constantly on those other Lightning Sorceresses. I didn't actually die today, but you could see that it definitely came close many times. So you might be thinking, there's no way this character can play in hardcore. That's a joke. Well, you'd be wrong. All it takes is some easy gear tweaks and you're good. So let's kind of explain before we start farming with her what's different about this sorceress than the other sorceress. So we're still getting we're gonna try to balance magic finding and damage with these defensive considerations. Let me see if I can actually proc my, let's see here. Oh, no more 200 FCR, you can already tell, right? Okay. Okay. Oh, this is players 1, yeah. Okay. That's fine. Come on, proc your stupid aura, mercenary. So the mercenary has Defiance aura. You can use Defiance or Holy Freeze in hardcore. I'd recommend using one of those two instead of Might. You really want defensive, some kind of defensive aura on him. Bro! Where is your aura, bro? Come on, bro. What am I paying you for? There we go. Alright, so he's using Defiance. I actually really like Defiance in hardcore because it scales really well with high defense options like Enigma and Storm Shield. I'll explain that in a second though. So, this is a hardcore Lightning Sorceress. In general, if you want to view this gear in the chat right now, type !HC Light Sorc. Alright, anyway. Let's go. 30k lightning damage, pretty solid lightning damage still. I mean, it's way higher than our P1 variant we had on softcore, so that's one thing for a start. Our defense is almost 11,000, which means monsters are not going to be hitting us very often. Their chance to hit us is pretty bad. With 1 point Frozen Armor and Defiance Aura on the Mercenary and some high defense on our gear, we can actually accomplish a pretty high defense rating. Another thing to note is that we have 75% block. So this is the key. On most hardcore builds, if not all of them, unless you're wearing a bow or you just absolutely can't get max block, you should have max block. Max block will negate a ton of damage on top of the high defense, and it's going to just make it really hard for monsters to actually do damage to us. And if the damage does get through, it's not going to be doing fatal damage most of the time. Unless the monsters have some pretty crazy auras. In general, we're going to want to teleport past packs as well in this character, not land into them just in case. But, you know, still have very good stats just the same. We're also hitting only 2,000 health, which is more than some of our software builds without block and without damage reduction, so that's actually pretty impressive. Then, of course, we're still hitting 117 FCR. The faster you can kill things, faster you're out of danger. Sometimes the best defense is a good offense as well. Our Magic Find is still okay. You know, Magic Find is not your primary concern when you're playing in hardcore mode, when your character dies forever, if it dies ever. So, you're not really concerned too much about the Magic Find, but that being said, it's actually decent. Like, it's okay. Like, anything over 200, as I've said before, is before you kind of get those heavy diminishing returns anyway. So, you're at least doing decent if you're hitting over there. Since we're using max block, faster hit recovery is not as much of a concern on this character. It's also way harder to hit because we're not using spirit. So I'd at least try to hit 30 to 42 though, if possible. We're hitting 30. 30 FHR is fine. Elemental attacks can still put us in faster hit recovery, so we definitely want to make sure we have at least some hit recovery. Let's see. I mean, physical attacks can too, but it's pretty rough, especially with Storm Shield, and if we use Energy Shield on top of that, we're actually not going to be taking that much damage. We don't have to use Energy Shield, but we'll talk about that here in a second. So that's pretty much it for the stats. Oh yeah, damage reduction is 43%. Forgot about the stats in the res. So the res is stacked. It's stacked because monsters can have Conviction Aura, which means they can drop our resistances far below that 75. Obviously, they're maxed, but Conviction will lower Fire, Cold, and Lightning res, so you want to make sure it's as stacked as possible. Especially if we want to farm World Stone with this build, which we will. So, like, you want to make sure they're really stacked. Matter of fact, if you can get the Lightning res stacked even more, that would actually be better. Souls are still a little bit dangerous if they have Conviction like this, even if we wear T-Gods. So, it's okay, though. It's okay. It should be fine. So just make sure that you can get as much res as possible on Sorceress. And then, of course, yeah, we have decent damage, we have solid stacked res, and our damage reduction is close to 50%. One way to get it to 50% would be to put a Burr Rune in the Storm Shield instead of a Shale. I chose a Shale for block rate so that we don't get stuck, and block rate's nice. It's even more important than FHR on a hardcore version of the Sorceress because block rate... you're mostly blocking, so you got max block, right? So you're gonna be mostly blocking. Your hit recovery isn't gonna activate much. You're blocking so much more than you're actually taking like more than 1/12 of your health and damage. So the block rate's more effective for getting you out of nasty situations. That being said, though, a Burr Rune is a solid choice because then you get 50% DR. Also, the Burr's an expensive option, so I'm kind of like straying away from it, at least at the moment on here. But you can definitely do it. At 52% block rate, though, we're definitely flying smooth. So, this is an item we use on the standard version of the Light Sorc, but on the hardcore Sorc, it becomes, I think, even more imperative. Oculus is a pretty bad option because of the random teleport in hardcore. You can do it, at least at max block, but it's still dangerous because all it can take is, let's say you're teleporting in Worldstone. You hit a Death Lord, it teleports you into a pack of dolls. Your mercenary cracks some, and you have amp on your head, and it cracks the dolls, and then you just take fatal damage. Even with so much DR, an amp can still drop that DR very fast, and Oculus still makes things kind of dangerous. You can definitely do it though, and Ashudas is also an option, but remember, we want to stack res, so we're hitting skills and FCR while stacking res, which makes Hodo even more important on a hardcore version of the build. Even though it's really nice and makes for nice smooth gameplay on the standard Lightning Sorceress, it's even more important on the hardcore Sorceress. Enigma, just like with the standard Light Sorceress, this is going to provide us with an additional 350 to 400% life from its increased maximum life, stacking on top of the CTA buff, on top of all the strength it's giving us to wear Storm Shield. Sorceress doesn't have a lot of base strength, so that's actually giving us a ton of life just in general, and it's giving us damage reduction, 8%. So in general, and the life after each kill. So just like with the quality of life on the standard Light Sorceress, once again, these stats become even more important on the hardcore Sorceress. Now that being said, Chains of Honor also has a ton of stacked res, it has a ton of all res, and it has damage reduction. So Chains of Honor is not a bad idea, at least on hardcore. That being said, I still really prefer all that extra life from so much more strength, and I prefer the increased maximum life as well, and the life after each kill, which you don't get on Chains of Honor. If possible, as long as you can stack your res with charms and other means, I would avoid Chains of Honor, but you can definitely do that if you really feel like you want to stack your res to the max and you want to make it a lot easier. With Chains of Honor on hardcore, you can definitely justify maybe using more damage charms, so maybe you can increase your damage with it because you have so much res. Of course, you can also use Viper Magi here. Another thing you can even do here, yeah, you know, you could use a lot of things really. Like defense. Defense is another thing too. That's one of the reasons you use Enigma as well, is because it has so much defense. But you can use S-Skulders, you can use Arcane's Valor. You really just want defensive stats in general. Fortitude is actually underrated, actually. Fortitude will proc Chilling Armor, which even though it's not as good as Frozen Armor, that could actually be a bad thing. Fortitude has 1600 defense, and Fortitude gives you FCR, and it gives you all res, so it's nice for stacking res as well. Fortitude's definitely an option on hardcore. I'm still using Enigma though, because I just like all the extra life. Griffins is just good on every Lightning Sorceress, even a hardcore one, just because it gives you a lot of damage, and damage is always going to feel good. That being said, if you make a lot of use of Static Field, you might not even want Griffins. Maybe you can even put 2 Lightning Facets in a whatchamacallit? Wow. Can't even think of what it is. Freaking Crown of Ages, yes, Crown of Ages, yes. The Crown of Ages is actually really solid because Crown of Ages can make up that DR difference as well, that damage reduction difference. You can go overboard with the DR too, and it would actually be more effective against amplified damage, so that's not even a bad idea. And it also gives you more faster hit recovery, which means it's easier to hit higher FHR breakpoints as well. Since I'm hitting a lower one, you can definitely hit 60 pretty easily with a Crown of Ages. I don't know why I blinked out on the item. I knew what it was. Blanked out on its, yeah, Crown of Ages. Crown of Ages with Lightning Facets would be nice, or you could even put a Crown of Ages with Burr Runes in it and just overstack your DR to the moon. Of course, then you're not going to have any enemy light res, which means you're not going to be doing much damage even after you use Static Field, especially in Player 7. So you could lower your damage to a point, but it's definitely a preference thing at that point. Still like the Lightning Faceted Griffins though. I'm being a little greedy with it, I'm gonna admit. You could put a Burroon in one of these slots and you can have a bit more DR, but 43% DR is pretty solid. This amulet is tons of res. It gives us that 5 FCR we need to still hit 120 FCR when we're not using Spirit. This is why we have a lot of FCR items on this build, because we're not using Spirit. We need to make up for it with FCR elsewhere. This one gives us FCR. It's a really nice crafted Ami, but you could still use you could use a lot of things here. I mean, you could still use Mars. There's a lot of things you can do. If you do so, you're definitely gonna have to make up with it with like an FCR ring down here. And Mars gives you all res as well, so there's definitely, you could do a Mars, you could put like another FCR ring, then you'll still be hitting that 117 breakpoint. Overall, it's pretty solid. And then this is the most important part of any. Hey, what's up, Super Sage? How you doing? What's up, Leo Gaucho? Wow, that's a damn. Those are really good torches, actually, Leo Gaucho, for sure. Take notes. Alright, anyway, so this is the most important part of any hardcore build in LOD. Storm Shield. Storm Shield, I put a shale in it for 55 block rate. The block rate is really nice because we're actually hitting a breakpoint on the Sorceress. But like I said, you could put a burr in one of those places. You could get a bit more DR. This helps us hit max block pretty easily, though. It gives us 35% damage reduction and also gives us a crap ton of defense, which scales really well with the Mercenaries Defiance order I'm using. And also scales just really well in general the rest of the build. So we need that damage reduction, we need that block rate, we need a defense. It scales well with Frozen Armor as well. Got the block rate, got the defense. Good stuff. Ideally, you'd actually have a 6-bow CTA on hardcore. Our hardcore CTA luck has been trashed, so have a 4-bow here. Have an Athlidless. It's not as far along, I'd say, as the softcore one either. It's still missing more items than just Tyraels, but got a Mage Fist that's double up for more defense. I would upgrade these to Wormhide, but it doesn't have any base defense, so it doesn't matter too much. This is giving us even more res. It's also giving us MF and FHR, so this is really nice for hardcore. A boots like this is actually ideal. That being said, it's hard to find boots like this, so use what you can. Alder's boots, Natalia's boots, maybe you just drop the MF, get more life off of Alder's. All those are great options, but these boots have FHR in addition to dual res, and they're giving us MF as well, so it's really good for stacking those resistances, especially lightning res, which is really important for farming Worldstone on hardcore. And of course we have our FCR here, we have our FCR here, and we have our FCR here, which makes up the difference on Spirit, and voila, we have 120 FCR. We got Stone of Jordan still, but we also have a ring that has 10 FCR, Strength, Life, and Mana. This is crafted using the Blood Ring recipe. And of course we have an Arachnid's Mesh. You can swap out some other things. Like I said, you can get more damage reduction in the helm. If we get more damage reduction down here, you can use Dungos. If you do that, though, you're going to need maybe more FCR on the Amulet. So there's definitely things you can do, and you can lower your damage further if you want to go a little bit even more defensive. I feel pretty safe on this build when I play her, though, so it's it doesn't feel like it's too squishy, so I'd say it's pretty solid. Of course, T-Gods is going to want to be used for swapping out. And I think we talked about most of the hardcore gear options in general. As we get down to the charms, though, it's just all about that res. And since we're on hardcore, life is even something that should be focused on. So we even have life res charms, not just MF res charms. So we're not just being greedy here, we're actually making sure we have more life. And we also have some solid skillers. But I wouldn't have a whole inventory of them. I definitely would focus more on the other stats, especially if you're not fully stacked on them. So it's definitely a balancing act on hardcore, so keep that in mind. It's not just about, it's not as easy sometimes as filling your whole inventory with skillers. Sometimes you just want more life. You can get more life with 3 small charms than you can with even the best skill GC. So you gotta keep that in mind. Alright, anyway, these are pretty nice. This is also holding up our FHR as well. Alright, so we're hitting, no, the next one on this one's actually 42, so we're only hitting 30 on the hardcore one because, like I explained, we're mostly going to be blocking on this character, so it's not as important on a character that mostly relies on block frames. That's why the faster block rate becomes more important, and why Shale is a strong option in a Storm Shield. Eld is also a strong option just to save some vitality points and get you to max block easier. But Burr, of course, you know, would also get us to 50 DR instead of 43. So there's definitely a lot of things to think about. But in general, the idea is to survive. So we want to live, and we want to farm. So, without further ado, let's show kind of how this hardcore sorceress does in P1 first. So you notice that these dudes have fanaticism. They're trying to kill me. They're just hitting my shield though. If I did this on any of my softcore sorceresses, I'd already be dead if I just sat there and just took some of those volleys from fanaticism quill rats. And because I have 10,000 defense, and I have maximum block, and I have almost 50 DR, and I'm not amped currently. You gotta watch amp on hardcore for sure, but they're not gonna be doing all that much, and they're not even gonna be hitting me very often. So this sorceress is very well attuned to the dangers of hardcore. So we can do the standard players 1 farm MF thing in the pit. We have way more health than a Tal's Sorc, but once again, we don't have as much magic finds, so it's definitely a weakness. But we can still kill things very fast. And we're just safe. I feel like I'm just gonna sit here for a while just to show you guys, you know. Take a drink of water and hardcore a bit. Chill on the back porch, you know. Yeah, see, the mercenary is just having a good time, you know. He's just, come on, man! Making me do all the work! Alright, anyway, so you get the idea. She is a tanky beast. That's what you want. Alright, so now we're amped. So we're definitely taking a little bit more damage, but notice that an amp hit from an archer volley would normally take me all the way down there if that was softcore having no DR, so we're still super tanky, even with amp. Don't have to fear the archers with multi-shot very much. You don't want to, because you can't die. Very bad things to have to deal with that, for sure. Alright, so as you can see, he passes the muster for sure. I guess we can also demo Worldstone. So Worldstone is very dangerous. It's well known as one of the most dangerous areas in the game, just in general. And of course, it's one of the Lightning Sorceress's strongest farms, so... But if you see souls, screw your FCR. Just make sure you get... You could even put swap out with like an FCR ring if you want to maintain your... at least your teleport breakpoint. I'm actually going to go down even a teleport breakpoint here, though. Just say screw it. I have 85 light res now and 20 light sword. I don't want to die to souls. Souls do a ton of damage, as you saw when I was doing the playthrough with the softcore versions of the character. I'm not messing around in this character. We're not going to die. So we are going to player smart. Let's target elites. We'll tank the souls. And notice with T-Gods and 85 light res, we're tanking the souls pretty effectively. And since we have stacked res, even if they have conviction, they're not going to be doing that much damage. They'll be doing damage for sure, but we'll be able to react in time most likely. T-God is also going to be really good against these monsters, which are also very dangerous. The mages sometimes are very dangerous. You can also just like sit in here and let the mercenary just tank him a bit. It'll be fine to go. So the breakpoint we were aiming for before on the softcore version Leo Gacho is 86. 6. Alright, so, yeah, so as you can see, I'm not too concerned on this character, though. The mercenary dies a lot faster than I do, honestly. Now that was amp. Might, you know, in general we're looking pretty good. I can actually take off the T-Gods now because there's no souls in here. So now we're back to our FCR frames, which we really want. Definitely is nice to have our FCR and teleport frames. As you can see, definitely some dangerous stuff in here. But in general, notice that they were actually able to do some decent damage to me because I was debuffed by Amp or Decrep there. But they weren't able to outright kill me like that or get me close to 0. So that gives us enough time to pot. Even I actually kind of wanted to face tank that on purpose there just to show you there. Which I feel comfortable with because, you know, I have some experience doing this. Alright, so we're going to go player 7 for the waves now. I'm actually going to show you players 3 at the very least. I wouldn't farm player 7 Worldstone, farm it on a hardcore sorceress, but I'd teleport it. You can definitely teleport it pretty safely. But actually farming like Worldstone 1 and things with charger zombies in player 7, heck, even farming players 1 with that is pretty dangerous. Now, I have done it before, and if you are going to farm something as dangerous as player 7 Worldstone, even on a hardcore sorceress, what I'd recommend is a small skill change. So, I'm going to show you guys the skill tree. Normally I show the skill tree immediately after showing the gear and showing the stats. But I'm actually going to show you, there's one difference you can do on the hardcore one if you really want to. If you want a little bit of extra survivability. You can definitely make yourself, I wouldn't say invincible, but pretty close. Sorceresses have an ace in the hole for when they really want survivability and they can't get it. It's how you get survivability on hardcore when you don't have gear like Storm Shield as well, so I'll kind of show you what's going down here in a second. Those are very nice boots. Booties! I know, it's how I leveled up a lot of my hardcore characters, so that's kind of cool. Alright, so, you know, another Bale kill with a Lightning Sorceress, but this time on hardcore. We don't need to torture ourselves in player 7, though. Unless we really want to. Since we have such amazing defensive stats, we can just sit under his, you know, best ring appendages and sit under his assaults. Kill him pretty smoothly. You didn't even have to use any potions. Which is nice, you know, you have the potions to use them, of course, you know, and it makes sense to, but you never feel like you have to on a hardcore sorceress because you're really tanky. And if you do have to, well, that means you encountered something really nasty. Alright, so, it's a pretty good demo in general. You know, I'll show you guys a little bit higher player count. Let's show you guys player 7 Worldstone, just to show you guys how this works here. So, let's say I want to go in a really dangerous area, and I'm in a full party on hardcore. How do I make myself tanky enough to ensure that I can tank that amount of damage sometimes from auras and other things? On a Lightning Sorceress. Well, let me see, are there any souls? Are there any souls in here? If there's souls, it's fine, we can wear T-Gods, but... Okay, there's no souls. Alright, so what I'm gonna do is this will be standard procedure. We're gonna use 1-point energy shield. This 1-point energy shield here with a lot of plus lightning skills is giving us 74% absorb, which means 74% of the damage we take is going to the mana. Now, if you want to make your energy shield more effective, of course, you can have it absorb more by leveling up energy shield itself, or you can put additional points into telekinesis. We did not put any additional points into telekinesis, but you can. So you can put more points into it, and then when you take 1 point of damage, your mana won't take to your health. It won't take 2 to your mana per point of damage. It'll take like less than 2 points of mana. If you maxed out telekinesis, it would get it all the way down to 0.75. On hardcore, if you really want to, you could even lower your damage if you want, and you can focus on survivability, and you can even put more points into telekinesis or even energy shield and make it to where your energy shield is as effective as possible at mitigating damage. One thing to note about energy shield is that if your mana runs out, it stops blocking the damage and all the damage goes to your health again. So make sure you keep your mana pool up and make sure your mana pool is at least semi-decent if you want to try this. That's one of the reasons, by the way, why I have this ring on this character, not just for the general playing of Lightning Sorceress, but also so if I want, I can have a decent energy shield. So this energy shield is actually going to be pretty nice. You'll notice here, I'm actually blocking a lot of damage. And I can just use mana potions. I can kind of just sit here and tank most of the damage, even in player 7, which is where we're at the moment. So it's not bad. That being said, Energy Shield is way more effective against physical damage like doll explosions, or against just physical attacks from these monsters. The magic damage from the Snake Bone Spears actually pierces Energy Shield pretty well. You saw when the snake hits me? Let me see if I can see. Yeah, there we go. See how I lost almost 200 mana from one Bone Spear? That was a low roll too, I think. Yeah, there we go. So, you see how the Bone Spear is just eating through the Energy Shield really fast. Against attacks like that, it's not super effective, but it's better than anything. You'll notice that I hardly took any damage to my health. I'm mostly dying from poison damage at the moment. From the poison mages, but yeah. It's pretty cool stuff. And yeah. So this is player 7 World Stone, and honestly, the only time I really feel comfortable doing P7 World Stone is having Energy Shield on. But you can do it without Energy Shield too. You just have to be really careful with the auras and whatnot, and make sure you're not face tanking. If you have your Energy Shield active though, you can definitely face tank pretty well, even in player 7 World Stone with a Sorceress. So all that nonsense about not being able to play hardcore with a Sorceress be put to bed right now. If you ever thought it, I know some people might be watching this guide and already knew a Sorceress could do hardcore, but I think some people are very scared. You shouldn't be as intimidated now, though. Heck, even without Storm Shield, Energy Shield will still block a ton of damage for you and will at least allow you to farm effectively. You're not going to want to face tank as much, of course, but because block is still helping me out immensely, and so is my defense. The block and defense come first. If I actually get hit, that's when the Energy Shield gets triggered. If they actually hit me here, there we go. So I got hit by that. Once again, elemental damage eats right through the Energy Shield, which is why it's not good against Burning Souls, and you really want that T-Gods. You don't want to use Energy Shield against them. Against Doll Explosions, though, it's amazing. I can find some dolls, actually. Maybe I'll show you guys how that works on hardcore. I just have to maybe limit it. I don't want to... Too many dolls can still kill you. It doesn't matter how much you have, health you have, or Energy Shield, or anything else. But I could actually tank some dolls decently, actually. So even if you make an oopsie... Okay, so... You got souls in here, so Energy Shield's not going to do jack shit. Matter of fact, if they take off my Energy Shield, that'd be nice. I don't think they're going to, though. But they drain the mana, so they're actually making it hard for me to kill them. Since it's player 7, it's even more difficult. Okay. Alright. Matter of fact, sometimes you might want to even put on your T-Gods before you enter the area, because sometimes they could even be blocking the entrance. So that's one thing to note there. Alright, well we don't have our Energy Shield on anymore, which is fine. There's just elemental damage in this World Stone anyway, so big deal. Elemental damage, you'd actually rather not have Energy Shield on, honestly. Rather just rely on T-Gods if you need it. Heck, even something like Dwarf Star would be kind of nice for this, or like Raven Frost to mitigate fire and cold damage as well, instead of Stone of Jordan. But then you're losing even more mana, and then your quality of life goes down, and then you have to chug more mana potions. So everything's a balance in Diablo 2, and the Hardcore Sorceress is no exception. Arctic boots? No, they're actually just a really nice pair of awesome rare boots that I found. Grail. Hardcore Grail. One might say these boots are just amazing on hardcore in general, because you get the MF and you get the dual res on them. It has. Oh man, Rolling Hammer coming in with a tier 3! Chat. He's a member of Xana's Elite. Rolling Hammer with that awesome support in the channel. Let's spam Eyes of Xana in the chat. Spam them all, whatever colors you got. Get them. Xana is Legion. Xana forever. Alright, guys. Help us out, guys. Help us out. Give him that Xana salute. Alright, but yeah, anyway. You can see this is pretty safe on hardcore. I want to be safe even against these guys. Notice, though. Oh, wow, they have mana burn. Oh, that's not going to keep us safe then. So that's another situation where, in general, Energy Shield doesn't protect you very well. Even if they didn't have mana burn, they had a lot of elemental damage because he had cold enchant, so once again, not good for elemental damage. Right. Let's finish off Bale. We have Energy Shield, so it's a bit annoying, but that's okay. Alright. Nice. So, we don't have billions of MF, but we have decent MF, we got good survivability, and we have good damage. So overall, the build feels pretty good. And in player 7, if you use Energy Shield, you'll feel feeling pretty safe in Worldstone. Without Energy Shield, I wouldn't use Energy Shield against Souls, for instance, but if you see certain spawns like Death Lords and things like that, like Death Lords in here, or like, in general Doom Knights, it's a pretty good idea. Of course, you can also just keep your character screen or inventory on to prevent the monsters from attacking you, and to extend the visible range of your screen once again for teleporting. That also is very helpful in hardcore, which is something we just went over a second ago. Alright, anyway. Good stuff. Alright, we're reaching the end of the guide, chat. Let me see if I can find some dolls so I can show you guys just how good Energy Shield is, potentially, at mitigating damage. No dolls in this one? Yes, maybe? No? Okay, there we go. That's too many dolls, though. Let's see if you can, like, kill a couple of them. Okay, yeah, sure. You know what? Lay it on me. There you go. So notice how I didn't take any damage to my health, even though I took damage directly there. Now that one missed me because I have max block. Yeah, so you saw that there. You saw that, right? I mean, you saw that. My mana pool there got hit, but not my health. So if I'm amped, it's the same thing, but I might actually still take some damage to my health because I don't have that high of telekinesis, so I'm still gonna take a lot of damage in general. So yeah, I mean, that's what Energy Shield's good at. Blocking dolls, blocking physical damage, like Might, Fanaticism, that kind of stuff. It's definitely going to block like Dual Aura pretty well with Energy Shield. And if you're concerned about that because the damage is so high in a player 7 or player's 8, a full party game, it's definitely something to be concerned about, so 100%. Alright, anyway, those are pretty much all the major changes on this version of the character. Hope you guys enjoyed the hardcore demo and the hardcore sorceress. And believe it or not, chat, that is it for the Lightning Sorceress guide for the most part. I'll now be fielding questions from the chat. If you guys have any additional questions, if you guys have been here the whole time or even partially, I can always repeat things if you guys have them. So if you guys have any questions in the chat, I will take them now. Do we have any questions from the chat about this? You max Energy Shield. I actually only put 1 point into it. The reason why I had such high Energy Shield land is because I have a lot of lightning. I have a lot of plus skills, right? So you can see here, this is literally the same amount of points as Static Field. It's because I have 17 plus to skills. Actually 18 plus to skills, I think, if I actually have. Yeah, so yeah, it's 18 plus to skills. So we're hitting absorb at 74, which is pretty nice. At this point, I wouldn't even max out more absorb. I just put more into telekinesis if I really wanted um, to increase the amount of damage the mana pool can actually take before, of course, switches back over to my life because I run out of mana. Of course, you know, potting and keeping on top of your pots is very important for that reason, but
Good afternoon.
it's one of those things in general. Yeah, no maximum energy shield though. One thing to note as well about the hardcore sorceress based on that question is that you don't ever have to have energy shield, especially not for players 1. For a high player count and world stone teleporting though, I would definitely at least have it as an option. It can definitely save you some some insanely nasty scenarios. Even if you're not using it the whole time, like let's say you don't like how it drains your mana, even if you're not using it the whole time, let's say you're just teleporting here, and let's say you teleport directly into a pack and you get stuck. Let's say it hits your block frames. You can just go pop with your energy shield, and then you can just pop some of that damage and you can present it. You gotta be paying attention for that though. But if you see that, you could just pop it on you, and then you can get out of there safely with save and exit, or you can, you know, actually teleport out, and hopefully with potions you won't die instantly from getting hit by a couple of attacks from, let's say, Might Fanaticism or a stacked Deathlords with extra strong or something, right? Let's say you actually get block locked by that, you get stuck in block frames, you can maybe pop energy shield right before you teleport into that, or you can try to teleport out of it, and the second you see you're not going to be able to, you can try to keep teleporting out, use a potion, use energy shield, continue to try to teleport out, and if you can't, after using a whole bunch of juves, you can just save and exit and get out. It can save your life in many situations, so I think having at least 1 point into it is nice. Also, before you have this level of gear, 1 point energy shield will save your life, especially before you're able to get maximum block on a sorceress, because you don't have a shield of the caliber of Storm Shield, or you don't have enough of a health pool yet to justify getting max block with Rhyme. Yes, that's correct, Nick Lynch, for sure, and that's something you might have noticed watching this guide as well. That I actually did that a couple times. So giving yourself more time is always something that can help out. Honestly, I don't even feel like you ever need energy shield unless you're doing players 1 throne. Like, it could help with dolls because your mercenary can pop them instantly, especially if you're amped. Of course, you can always go back to town to remove the amp using Mala, but you can also just man mode it and just put on energy shield if there might be dolls, and if the mercenary pops some dolls, it's not the end of the world. But yeah, in general, you know, there's strategic uses of it, but it's annoying because it drains your mana, right? So you have to be chugging more mana potions. You're already using mana to use your spells. It can root you because you need teleport. You only need 5 mana for teleport, so that's actually one of the pros of that. And actually another thing you can do, because this is a hardcore sorceress, so you don't have as many plus skills, but if you had more plus skills, you can actually level up teleport and then reduce the mana cost for teleporting out. That being said, though, with so much mana regen, you're going to at least have 5 mana, like, almost the whole time, so it might be like a frame where you don't. So that could also save you, too. There's definitely some higher level mechanic stuff as well on hardcore, but for the most part, it's pretty solid. Alright, does anyone else have any more questions on this guide? Anyone else have any more, Yeah, that's nice, Nick Lynch. You know, we're gonna continue playing here today, but, yeah, the guide's pretty much done. Solid. Alright, guys, honestly, this is, I think, a slightly longer guide, last one we did. Is Ormus ever worth it? 200 FCR or Crescent Moon? Whenever you're trying to max out your damage, you just gotta make sure you get your res and FCR up in general, and then you can use Ormus. Problem with Ormus, though, is Ormus has no res and it has no magic find, so it's not ideal for every version of this build. I'd say for 200 FCR, though, getting that damage up and making sure your teleport speed is 200 FCR is definitely worth it sometimes with Ormus. And, of course, for Crescent Moon, just getting that damage up can be very nice. But then, once again, you're struggling for res, and you might have to find res in some really GG charms. I have really strong charms on this character. Imagine if you don't have strong charms, it becomes tougher to stack res in hardcore, it becomes tougher to stack res at Crescent Moon. So you gotta take all those things into consideration when you're building your character. I think we talked about most of those configurations though, so I'm pretty confident in that. Alright guys, well, GG. I think we're good. This is an S tier build. This build overall, I would say a Lightning Sorceress, not just the hardcore Lightning Sorceress, but the Lightning Sorceress is one of the strongest late game builds. It's a jack of all trades. It can do so many areas so well, especially with the right configuration. As you saw at Crescent Moon, you can even farm Mausoleum if you really want to. It's still not efficient though because they still have a lot of lightning res, but you can. You can do everything with this character, and you can do some things at max efficiency like Uber Key farming, Arcane farming, Bale killing, and overall elite sniping is very fast on this character. So this build is crazy strong. I highly recommend it to anyone who can acquire the gear for it. I don't really necessarily recommend playing this character until you at least have an item like Infinity or Griffins. It's very challenging when you can't break the lightning immunities. And, yeah. So it's definitely not a starter, but it's incredible. Once she gets going, you weave those attacks expertly, and you will see beautiful results as you saw today with all these demos. And I hope you guys overall enjoyed this guide. This guide, along with my other guides, are all in my guide section on my YouTube. I have an LOD guide section and I have a PD2 guide section. If you guys will also check out my Project Diablo II guides that are also hardcore friendly, as well as softcore friendly, but you get the idea. And you can always check me out at www.twitch.tv/darkhumility for 6 to 7 days a week of Diablo 2 variety content. We do it all. We do everything in this game. We even make up our own things to do. We just have a good time. So with that, guys, hope you love this guide, and I hope this helps you understand how to play the Lightning Sorceress and how to play one of the most incredible builds on LoD. And with that, Dark Humility. For now, see you guys next time.